If you had a net worth of $39 billion and were juggling a full-time job, revolutionizing the electric vehicle industry while trying to find life on Mars, you'd probably want to make sure you had some adequate protection in place. Just think of all the people who might want to come after you. Oil giants, kidnappers looking for a ransom, maybe even some Martians? What would you do to ensure your safety? There's probably not a lot you can do to prevent the threat of alien creatures, but with all that money, you can definitely lower your chances of being met with more earthly threats. Maybe you'd want a decent CCTV system in your house, a few security guards, and someone to monitor your cybersecurity. Well, with such mediocre and uninspired ideas about protecting yourself, I can see why Elon Musk is a billionaire changing the world while you sit there watching YouTube videos. Consider that Mr. Musk literally called one of his businesses the Boring Company, and he once sent off a rocket to space with a mannequin inside, listening to a loop of David Bowie's Life on Mars playing. You can expect him to make some slightly, eccentric decisions for his security. Think flamethrowers, watchtowers, and intergalactic operations all as part of the picture. But first of all, let's start small. Even if you're working 90-hour weeks, you still need a place to sleep and eat. Musk currently lives in a 1.67-acre estate in Los Angeles worth $17 million. It's a pretty flashy home that includes a 2-story library, home theater, gym, swimming pool, and a huge wine cellar. Having such a fancy mansion in a place as high-profile as Los Angeles could be a recipe for disaster, but Musk is bound to have some pretty stellar security. The safety measures implemented aren't public knowledge for obvious reasons, but there are a few things we know. For one, the entire security system of the place can be controlled from a mobile device. If anyone tried to intrude and pull any funny business, you can bet that staff would arrive in seconds and at the push of a button. Judging by Musk's contemporaries, he probably has his fair share of staff. Tech billionaires in Silicon Valley are known for the throngs of bodyguards they hire, since the high-profile nature and wide reach of these people and their work makes them particularly vulnerable. For instance, fellow tech entrepreneur Mark Zuckerberg has 16 bodyguards at his home working shifts to ensure there's always someone there if something goes wrong. By the way, the house has recently hit the market, bodyguards not included. If you have a few million to spare and you like the sound of the swanky library, you're welcome for the heads up. As for Elon and where he plans to go next, we can only assume he has his sights set on another planet completely. You already know that Musk works a 90-hour work week. He's probably the type of guy to take a pillow with him to the office and have a power nap under the desk. So security at work might be even more important to him than his home security. You might expect Musk to go all futuristic when protecting the headquarters of his companies. Maybe a laser maze that sets off alarms, or a tiny drone monitoring the premises at all times. However, in this case, it seems Musk has some nostalgia for the old ways of doing things. In 2018, he announced his plan to build a 50-foot watchtower for his corporation, the Boring Company, complete with a knight to yell insults at people in a French accent. I'd make a cheap joke by giving my best impression, but I don't want to get into trouble. There's no sign of the watchtower yet, but since it's Musk we're talking about, I'm not sure we can assume he wasn't being serious. As far as protecting yourself goes, it doesn't get more comprehensive than installing a literal watchtower. In the same year, Musk launched a range of flamethrowers branded with the Boring Company logo called Not a Flamethrower, which definitely were flamethrowers. Was this all a plan to arm Musk's most loyal minions and followers with weapons to protect him should the moment arise? Presumably, the security staff at the Boring Company are all equipped with the flamethrowers and ready to shoot at anyone who dares to enter the premises uninvited. It might sound like a joke, but I'm definitely staying away. So what about the daily commute? Musk lives in LA, a place well known for its ridiculously complex highway system and congested traffic. This leaves plenty of opportunities to be shot at or hijacked whilst driving to work. But Tesla vehicles are some of the most secure around. So as the founder and CEO of the company, Musk must be pretty well covered in his car. Imagine someone is driving him down the road when suddenly an intruder intercepts and jumps in the car. Each Tesla vehicle has GPS tracking Tesla itself has access to. So as long as he remains in the car, his employees would soon be able to figure out his whereabouts and attack a kidnapper with flamethrowers, even if the kidnapper managed to turn off the remote access feature. In fact, the cars have a remote disabling system that can also be accessed at all times, so an imposter could literally be stopped in their tracks. These security features apply to every run-of-the-mill Tesla vehicle, but the new Cybertruck takes things to the next level. As well as offering protection in the case of theft and intrusion, it also has an extremely durable exterior shell. Okay, so maybe the shell isn't quite as durable as Elon once thought, because once during a Cybertruck pitch, a metal ball smashed the truck's windows instead of demonstrating their strength, but I'm sure the engineers have fixed the problem by now. Tesla claimed the shell of the truck is nearly impenetrable, and it also features armor glass to avoid any damage from high-impact crashes. So if anyone was to try to crash into his car or shoot at him through the window, he'd probably fare better than you in your Ford Fiesta. Musk has been seen out and about driving the Cybertruck around Los Angeles a few times. Publicity stunt or not, the Cybertruck certainly isn't doing Musk any harm when it comes to personal protection. Of course, even the most secure vehicle can't completely protect you from the dangers and threats whilst driving. But luckily, the whole purpose of Musk's Boring Company is to build a tunnel that you can use to drive under cities. The tunnel is designed to eventually transition into a high-speed capsule in a vacuum tube that can whisk people about between cities underground. It can't hurt to know that if anyone's ever after you and you need to get away fast, there's a whole tunnel under your town at your disposal. Plus, it does come complete with a watchtower and guard. Sounds like a decent level of protection to me. In any case, you can bet that Elon Musk isn't going to be alone when he's cruising around LA and attending meetings. You can be sure he has a few people hired to laugh at his jokes, hold his coffee, and protect him in case anything goes wrong. Whenever Elon is spotted in public, there are usually a few bodyguards nearby. And Musk's security guards aren't any old security guards. They're known to capitalize on a little-known quirk of the legal system that allows anyone to easily obtain permission to carry concealed firearms. In the small town of Lake Arthur in New Mexico, a 2004 federal law granted all of its officers and unpaid volunteers in the police force the right to have concealed carry privileges that overrule their local gun restrictions. As a result, there are more than 300 reserve officers in the town of just 443 people, because that isn't suspicious at all. Amongst the noble volunteers are not just Musk's security guards, but also the staff of other billionaires, including the Koch brothers. Bribes may or may not have been involved. Be right back. I'm off to Lake Arthur. So basically, Musk has probably a load of undercover security guards who are allowed to conceal their weapons. Don't be fooled by the sweet-looking guy in the jeans. Going near him in public isn't advisable. But it's not just the physical world that Musk needs protection from. These days, the online world can be just as dangerous. If you ever sent your life savings to a beautiful girl you met on the internet who needed it for an operation only to never hear from her again, you'll understand what I mean. Please tell me it's not just me. Luckily, Musk takes his cybersecurity and privacy seriously. In both his personal and professional life, he's prided himself on the attention paid to cybersecurity at all of the companies he's founded or worked with. Through founding a company that went on to merge with PayPal, SpaceX, and Tesla, his enterprises have never been hacked, and he's taking care to implement secure systems. So you can bet that he's putting just as much effort into protecting his own sensitive data and personal information. In fact, Musk doesn't use Facebook due to privacy concerns, and he even wipes and destroys his phone on a regular basis to ensure no sensitive information gets out there. Classic billionaire antics. Meanwhile, I'm still here using the iPhone my mom bought me for my 20th birthday. Musk may not be a Facebook fan, but he is known for being an avid Twitter user. This leaves him open to attacks and criticism from online trolls that even his dodgy security guards can't save him from. Luckily, he has an army of trolls to protect him on Twitter, because I'm sure that's what the man is lying awake worrying about at night. Anyone who tags Elon or his company on Twitter with a slightly negative sentiment can expect to be met with an onslaught of abuse from his many fans. But even when you're a multi-billionaire that can afford top-of-the-range security, it's nice to know that you're getting support from the government. Luckily for Musk, Donald Trump recently said that Elon Musk is one of the country's great geniuses, and we need to cherish and protect him. Give me a moment, my eyes are welling up. It's unlikely the government is helping to foot Musk's security bill or launching a special CIA mission to make sure he's safe, but it seems that he has a special place in the president's heart. We can only assume they'd step in during his moment of need. At the end of the day, though, there are some things that even internet trolls and the President of the United States of America can't prepare you for. The next ice age, World War III, or zombie apocalypse could just be around the corner. And who would protect you then? Some might be happy to slip away in such a dire situation, but not Musk. He has a legacy to protect. Even if everything goes wrong on Earth, he needs to know that it won't be the end of the road. Everyone loves a good conspiracy theory about secret clubs of billionaires plotting how they'd get away from the Earth and found a new civilization if everything went to pot. And let's face it, Musk would probably be sat at the head of that table in this kind of meeting. He's literally the founder of a company that hopes to start human civilization on Mars. His company SpaceX is currently trying to develop the Starship, a huge reusable space vehicle to take people to and from Mars, and hopes to launch the first rocket to Mars in 2022. He's already planning how to find water resources at identify hazards, power sources, and everything else needed to sustain life on the planet. This is all public information, so who knows what's going on in private? Maybe Musk secretly has a private rocket all set up with the essentials so that he can jet off to Mars at the push of a button should things come to that. On the bright side, it seems that he's hoping to take other people with him too, rather than go it alone. He's hoping that 1 million people will be on Mars by 2050. Choose me, Elon. Choose me. With the resources at Elon Musk's disposal, it's easy to infer that he must be one of the most protected people in the world. Even if his multi-billion-dollar company, the president, and extensive private security system all let him down, he can literally escape to Mars to keep himself safe. How many other people have that in place as a backup plan? Even though we don't know much about the finer details of Musk's personal protection, it seems that his security is as weird and wacky as he is. If you read his press releases, he's a genius inventor and businessman whose sole goal is to make the world a better place. But is that the truth? With his recent purchase of X, and the greater public scrutiny of Musk's objectionable behavior and bizarre decisions, it's safe to say that people are starting to see a darker side to this 2010s nerd hero. The facade of being a tech genius and the savior of humanity has been cracked, and underneath it is the ugly truth about Elon Musk. Grab a boring company official flamethrower to light your way as we delve into the seedy underbelly of the controversial billionaire's life story. Born June 28, 1971, in Pretoria, South Africa, Elon Reeve Musk would have you believe that he came from humble beginnings. And by humble beginnings, we of course mean he was born into a family that was already far better off than his current-day self would have you believe. He likely made the claim that he's a self-made man, that all his extravagant wealth and business acumen was built on years and years of hard work, starting at the bottom and climbing to the top. The truth is, however, that Elon Musk's father, one Errol Musk, was an electrical and mechanical engineer and property developer, as well as reportedly a pilot and a sailor in his downtime. Then there's the factor of the now infamous Zambian emerald mine. While this part of his family fortune has been disputed by Elon in more recent years, in 2014 the man himself openly admitted to his father and family's ownership of an emerald mine. This was brought up as recently as 2022. The now former United States Secretary of Labor, Robert Reich, challenged the very notion of so-called self-made billionaires. Reich asserted that while the idea is that anyone who's willing to work hard enough can achieve tremendous wealth, a lot of rich people who claimed that this was the case received considerable financial backing from their families. This rags to riches narrative pushed by a lot of these people ignores the considerable leg up they were given by their families, which in turn provided them with avenues to accumulate even more money. Among the examples Reich listed, like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, he also mentioned Musk originating from a wealthy family who owned an emerald mine. Elon Musk is quick to refute this on Twitter at the time, attacking Reich's character and arguing against the idea that he'd come from wealth. Ironically, this now often disputed claim about Musk is something he was more than happy to brag about in interviews less than a decade earlier. Whether or not the family did indeed own an emerald mine, even if that story is completely falsified, there's no denying that growing up Elon's family had plenty of money. That would conflict with the idea of him being in any way self-made, or any notion that he's at all like the rest of us. Instead of coming from rags to riches, he merely went from riches to even greater riches. He and his siblings experienced a life of extravagant wealth from a young age, provided access to thoroughbred horses and motorcycles as young as 14. The Musk family greatly benefited from being part of South Africa's ruling white minority during its apartheid. This was the name given to the policies that enforced racial segregation within the country between the late 1940s and early 1990s. Under apartheid, Elon and his family had an economic advantage over the non-white majority of the South African population. Were it not for his family's connections and considerable resources, Elon Musk wouldn't have been able to move to Canada at the age of 18. Even today, moving across the world from one country to another, while not impossible, is extremely difficult for many working people. It's no small expense either, but when you're born into a wealthy family, the cost incurred by immigrating is probably more negligible. Again, Elon was lucky in this regard. His mother, Mae Musk, was a model and a dietitian who'd been born in Canada, making the initial move and the eventual Canadian citizenship much easier to acquire. Now, it is worth noting that the cushy upbringing that Elon Musk reportedly had wasn't without its own share of troubles. According to an interview Musk gave, his father could be abusive at times. Publicly, Errol Musk has made his own harsh comments toward his son, stating he thinks Elon needs to grow up. The pair have long been estranged from each other, and Errol Musk is seemingly also an unsavory character, to say the least. It's been reported that he, at 76 years of age, has had 2 children with his own stepdaughter, Jenna Bezoudenhout. who is 41 years younger than him and to whom Errol became a stepfather when Jana was 4. However, given the fact that Elon Musk's behavior does somewhat make his alleged abuse toward his son believable, it shouldn't be forgotten that Elon is known to have a habit of greatly embellishing, or sometimes outright lying, about all manners of things. And with the aforementioned emerald mine speculation, he's been known to completely deny things he previously admitted to being true. And as we'll come to see, he's not beyond making bold public declarations that later turn out to be false. Either way, neither Elon Musk nor Elon Musk are particularly upstanding people, it seems, so in a way the apple has not fallen very far from the tree. After securing a Canadian visa through his mother, Elon Musk studied in the US at the University of Pennsylvania, achieving both a Bachelor of Arts degree in physics and a Bachelor of Science in economics. He then went on to Stanford University to get his PhD. As we're making this video, the total cost of a single academic year of study at Stanford is over $82,000. Yes, that's for a single year, so no doubt Elon took his opportunity to study at this university very seriously and understood that it was a tremendous opportunity, the likes of which many in America will sadly never be able to afford. I mean, he did, right? No, in fact, he dropped out after 2 days, and years later would claim that he left Stanford University with $100,000 in student debt. The primary reason Elon Musk dropped out was to pursue a career in the tech sector, which drew him to Silicon Valley. Partnering with his brother Kimball Musk, a close friend of infamous creepazoid Jeffrey Epstein, the two aimed to create an online business directory called Zip2. This would act as a digital alternative to the Yellow Pages. This business venture of a searchable web directory was funded by none other than Elon Musk, who offered up $28,000 towards Zip2's startup costs. When it came to founding of Zip2, Elon Musk just happened to be in the right place at the right time. It was by pure happenstance that he was active in the tech space during the dot-com bubble, when the high rate of internet adoption in the late 90s meant there was more venture capital available from investors seeking to put money into online startups. And Elon also had a financial advantage thanks to his dear old dad's cash. Even then, Elon wasn't about to miss out on garnering potential investors for Zip2, even if it meant outright lying to them to get them to invest. It's been reported that in order to trick investors out of their money, Elon Musk built a large casing around a normal-sized computer. Well, normal size for the late 90s at least. How did this benefit him or Zip2 for that matter? Well, supposedly it was done to make the investors believe Elon's software was far more advanced than it actually was, painting Zip2 as some kind of sci-fi supercomputer. Of course, in reality it wasn't, although this pattern of behavior wouldn't end there. As you'll soon see, lying to investors and consumers, over-embellishing and promising technology that is infeasible and impossible to create are just as easy as breathing for Elon Musk. His trick with the Zip2 supercomputer might have worked, as easy as it would be to see through today, and it netted him an investment of $3 million from a venture capital firm. However, Musk was only offered this investment under the condition that he allowed somebody who was more experienced to take the helm and run Zip2 as a company. Nowadays, his ego often has him rewriting the history books to claim he founded companies he didn't even start himself, and we'll come back to that in a few moments. But at the time, Zip2 needed the money, so Elon agreed to the conditions. More experienced programmers were brought into the company, and many had to rewrite the code that Musk had written. In their expert opinions, the level of knowledge on display in this coding was amateurish and seemed to have been the result of self-taught skills. Sure, coding is a complex skill that can take years to fully master. It would take a computer genius to learn how to code in a short period of time, let alone to do so by teaching themselves. Elon Musk was not and is not a computer genius, that much is clear from the mess he made of the Zip2 code. When it came to the day-to-day management of the company, Elon Musk would reportedly get angry at employees if they weren't at work at 9 o'clock at night. A standard workday for those who aren't big Dolly Parton fans typically lasts from 9 in the morning to 5 o'clock in the evenings. Maintaining a healthy work-life balance is important for human beings and our mental health, but Elon Musk's unreasonable disdain for his workers, who simply want to maintain such a balance, was yet another sign of things to come. Another element of his behavior that hasn't changed in over 20 years since the Zip2 days, more recently, Musk forced Tesla employees to return to offices during the 2020 coronavirus pandemic. If they didn't, he threatened that they'd have to leave the company entirely. Even more recently, during Musk's takeover of the social media platform Twitter, reports would emerge that employees were forced to sleep at the office, unable to leave thanks to Musk's rule that Twitter staff had to work a minimum of 40 hours a week. Although, in order to secure an investment for Zip2, he was made to step down from the top position in the company, Elon Musk later staged a coup to reinstate himself as CEO. Shortly afterwards, he made $22 million when the company was sold off to the Compaq Computer Corporation. Even back then, Elon Musk was obsessed with his own image. It's long been a key motivator behind all his biggest business decisions, all of which aren't actually made in order to benefit anyone other than himself. A few years later, in 1999, enter X.com. No, not that one. The original X.com was an online banking platform that Elon Musk created. And by created, we mean invested the windfall of the Zip2 sale into. Alongside 3 other co-founders, X.com's business model was designed to incentivize people into signing up for their service. By opening up an account with X.com, a person could receive a whopping $20 in their checking account. How generous! X.com was designed to be a way for people to send money electronically without the need to use a traditional bank. Hold on a minute, that sounds a lot like something we all use a lot nowadays. That also happened to exist at the same time as X.com, PayPal. Now, there's an important detail that's often been misconstrued, and that is no, Elon Musk is not the founder of, nor did he invent PayPal. Even today, he's often incorrectly attributed with this creation. His company X.com, which existed at the same time, merged with PayPal in 2000. X.com had even been using the existing service for up to a year beforehand. In short, PayPal predated X.com, and no, Elon wasn't a founding member of that particular digital money sending service. The truth was, while Elon Musk had once again talked a big game to get investors to give money to X.com, their technology for running their operation was antiquated even for the late 90s, and thus this meant massive security risks, which is the main thing any online service provider desperately wants to avoid, especially one that's dealing with the public's money and private banking information. Another thing to keep in mind when it comes to the future endeavors of Mr. Musk. X.com merged with another startup known as Confinity, which was the company responsible for creating, you guessed it, PayPal. The X name was abandoned for, well, marketing reasons. Market research conducted at the time indicated that websites containing the letter X in their URL carried associations with a rather different type of industry, one catering to an even more adult market than the banking sector. While Elon pushed to keep the name, despite how poorly marketable it was, it stayed as PayPal instead. Things started out rough at PayPal. During his time at the company, one executive suspected that Elon Musk had intentionally refrained from disclosing important financial details to PayPal's board of directors. At one point, PayPal was considered to be one of the worst business ideas of 1999, and due in large part to Elon's involvement, the company was losing a lot more money. More and more staff at PayPal questioned his decision-making and eventually deposed him via coup, removing him from his position as CEO of the company and replacing him with Peter Thiel, a young blood enthusiast and one of the co-founders of Confinity. After becoming a public company on the stock exchange in 2002, Thiel would sell PayPal to eBay for $1.5 billion. Had Elon not been removed, the company probably would have tanked in a matter of a few short months, but his grimy fingers weren't completely unhooked from PayPal even after it sold to eBay. Elon kept his shares and made a cool $180 million out of the sale. Despite no doubt wanting people to think he was more involved in the creation of PayPal, given how successful it would go on to become, in truth, Musk wasn't as influential in the founding of PayPal as he wants people to think. The only reason his name is still associated with it is thanks to a clause in his separation agreement from when he was removed as CEO. The clause stated that he was legally required to be referred to as one of PayPal's founders, even though he wasn't. Once again, this was a sign of things to come with another company commonly associated with Musk, that being the company that truly put him on the map, Tesla. As well as not being the founder of PayPal, Elon Musk is also not the founder of Tesla. As a matter of fact, the real founders of the car company are Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. The pair formally incorporated Tesla Motors together in 2003, and it wasn't until a year later that Elon Musk became their largest shareholder with an investment of $6.5 million. While this money, pocket change to a man like Musk, might have made him chairman of Tesla's board of directors, that doesn't mean he was in charge of running the company, and it certainly didn't spontaneously create a time portal allowing Musk to go back in time and replace Eberhard and Tarpenning as the company's founders. In fact, in terms of Elon Musk's contributions to Tesla, he only had a single patent to his name. That patent is for the shape of the charging port, not the technology itself, which is unique when compared to the connecting cables for other electric vehicles. If you've been so gracious to give our obnoxious oligarch friend the benefit of the doubt so far, then you might be forgiven for asking if this was done for some clever scientific or marketing reason. Does the specific shape of the Tesla charging port and the cable connector somehow make the electric vehicle charge faster? Or does it increase the duration between the charges, making the car's batteries go on longer? No, it was patented so no other models of electric cars could charge at Tesla stations. It was also Elon who pushed for the construction of more Tesla charging stations, to the point where they now make up 40% of all electric car charging stations in the US alone. This isn't so much a tactic to make charging accessible to drivers, and is instead a way to push more affordable electric car companies out of the market, thereby giving Tesla a monopoly over the electric vehicle market. During an interview they gave with the New York Times, the actual Tesla founders made the critical error of not referring to Elon Musk by name. They had no reason to, of course, since he wasn't the CEO, nor did he have any involvement with the production of their interviews. However, not having his zero notable contributions mentioned in the interview caused something of a tantrum. Musk made threats to leave Tesla unless Eberhard and Tarpenning contacted the New York Times and had them issue a retraction or an amendment to the article. To demand to be mentioned in an interview about a company you don't even run, well, that speaks to an astronomical level of pettiness. Set on becoming the public face of the company, Elon Musk drove Eberhard out of Tesla in 2007, illegally denying the man his severance pay in the process. This led to a lawsuit against Musk and a countersuit back at Eberhard, once again foreshadowing the future. Elon claimed Eberhard was responsible for the company's financial troubles, and while a settlement was eventually reached out of court, Musk still managed to rewrite history as a result. Just like his separation clause from PayPal, Musk legally demanded to become known as the founder of Tesla, kicking Martin Eberhard out of his own company that he'd built alongside Mark Tarpenning. Under Elon, Tesla's been paving the way in creating more environmentally friendly vehicles at affordable prices. Well, affordable to someone who has the funds to meet the $50,000 to $120,000 price tag, and also someone who doesn't mind potentially being incinerated when their shiny new time bomb on wheels detonates. Sadly, to call Tesla's vehicles environmentally friendly is something of a misnomer. While electric cars are more sustainable than those that rely on fossil fuels to power them, Tesla's cars are powered by batteries that contain lithium. Much like other resources, such as emeralds, for example, lithium has to be extracted from underground mines. The process of extracting the raw material from the earth has the potential to cause exponential harm to the planet. Soil degradation, water shortages in the surrounding area, and biodiversity loss are all known issues that can be caused or worsened by lithium mining. Overall, the mining process contributes to increasing global warming. All that's to say that while electric vehicles are intended to be a more carbon-friendly alternative to gas-powered cars, the amount of environmental damage involved in Tesla production effectively negates any positive environmental impact that their cars might have. With full knowledge of all this, Elon sold these anyway. In fact, he allowed the Tesla Model S batteries to be fitted in vehicles despite being aware that these particular batteries had an alarming tendency to break down and, well, catch fire. Lithium-ion battery fires are extremely difficult for firefighters to extinguish, leading to 30 confirmed deaths that came as a result of Tesla vehicles becoming uncontrollable fireballs. And that's not counting all the people who have been injured or worse by the autonomous self-driving function, which has been widely reported to be buggy and unable to register children crossing the street or stop the car in accordance with traffic rules. The vehicles that one of Elon Musk's flagship companies sells are considered by some to be death traps masquerading as a symbol of status and wealth, as well as support for Elon himself. Despite being hazardous to anyone who's not fond of being burnt to a cinder, arguably the upshot of Tesla's popularity has positively impacted the wider automobile market. Rival car manufacturers have been forced to up their game and produce their own models of electric vehicles in order to compete, and many of these are safer and more affordable alternatives for the general consumer. And at any rate, you're at least slightly less likely to get blown up by one of those if you're out on the road. Tesla has also been responsible for a number of OSHA violations and has a track record of trying to cover up some of the poor working conditions at their factories, as well as failing to report employee injuries to save face. One employee suffered an inhalation injury from breathing toxic fumes, and Tesla neglected to mention this in a government-mandated report. Not reporting serious incidents like this is a crime, as is lying on official reports to make a company look safer than it is. This was discovered and reported by Reveal, a non-profit news organization. In retaliation, Elon bashed Reveal, claiming that they were just journalists looking for advertising revenue and attention from clicks. But Reveal's status as a non-profit means they don't run advertisements. Tesla then released an additional response, likely with Musk's input, that attempted to smear Reveal as an extremist group intentionally spreading disinformation. However, Reveal had just delivered their findings, which had been based on various medical records, OSHA reports, and Tesla's own injury logs they had gathered, along with testimony from current and former employees of Tesla. Adding to the list of poor ways Elon Musk has treated the staff of his electric car company, he's also threatened to remove stock options for any employees who were members of a workers' union. The threat was one that caused him to face some legal backlash, but it's clear that Elon's stance on unions who advocate for better treatment of working people hasn't changed. And why would it? Unions challenge every cost-cutting, employee-endangering measure that Elon would want to employ, all to make himself a little more money on the backs of other people's labor. A guy who treats his workers like cattle instead of human beings and holds such resentment for the organized bodies that strive to protect workers' rights is far from the man of the people he likes to portray himself as. The slights of Elon Musk on his own workers still don't end there. Following the aforementioned factory injuries that were the result of poor working conditions at Tesla facilities and then covered up by the company, Musk promised to both meet with anyone injured at a Tesla factory as well as walk the factory floor, doing employees' jobs for them. According to those who received injuries, he never fulfilled this promise. During the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, Elon took up a particular disdain for how widely popularized working from home had become. As a way to reduce the risk of infection spreading, many businesses were required by the government to have their staff work remotely. Elon Musk, on the other hand, wanted to do things a little differently and forced his employees to go back to work during the height of lockdown. This caused an outbreak of over 450 cases in the factory, requiring those affected to return home and self-isolate. Remember that number, 450 cases, and this took place during the year 2021, all because of the same so-called genius who claimed there would be 0 cases of coronavirus by April 2020. Tesla was additionally sued by several of its employees for rampant racist practices within the car manufacturing company. Black Tesla workers were denied promotions and often suffered racial harassment while at work. Not only this, but the lawsuit alleges that only black employees were forced to scrub the floors of the factory facility on their hands and knees. Tesla was flippant and dismissive of these allegations and instead attempted to deflect by boasting about how much they've done for clean energy that requires damage to the environment in its production. Now, trying to exercise as much fairness as possible, it is true that Tesla isn't the only car manufacturer that's been known to engage in unethical activity within its factories. But while that might be the case, and more needs to be done to make working conditions for the people in those factories safer, there is a key difference. Few other CEOs of any other companies are worshipped to the degree that Elon Musk is. We've already mentioned the lithium mining for Tesla batteries and the impact this has on the environment, but Tesla's negative environmental impact extends even further. The company's been known to exploit government climate programs, like the carbon credit scheme, to make extra money. Carbon credits are essentially a permit for the amount of greenhouse gas a company is allowed to produce. If a company produces fewer emissions than the set amount, then they earn credits. If they overproduce, causing risk to the environment, then they reduce the number of credits. Tesla earns a lot of carbon credits and then sells them to other companies for a bump in profits, effectively monetizing the pollution that other companies create. Elon also contributes his fair share of pollution with his rocket-related vanity projects, like sending a Tesla into space, thanks to one of his other most famous companies, SpaceX, as well as leaning into occupying Mars as part of his public persona and brand, and claiming 10 years ago that there'd be people on Mars within a decade, so now. SpaceX has offered up its own share of proof at just how ignorant Musk truly is. During a now infamous launch, SpaceX's Starship rocket exploded minutes after it cleared the launch pad during a flight test. Not only was the explosion one of numerous failed launches for SpaceX, but the Federal Aviation Authority had denied Musk permission to launch. Their reasoning? They cited one of Musk's own tweets as a reason for concern, after he posted that the SpaceX flight in question had a 1 in 3 chance of success. For once, he was actually right about something because that rocket did, in fact, detonate. Then there's the aptly named Boring Company, dreamt up by Elon when he was sitting in Los Angeles traffic one day. He vowed to create a safe, earthquake-proof tunnel network under the city in order to reduce traffic and congestion. Sure, it was a decision he made based on the results of a Twitter poll, so that means it has to be a great business idea, right? You might be thinking that this tunnel system sounds a lot like a subway or some other form of public mass transit system, right? That would certainly help with traffic and aid pedestrians in safely getting to their destinations. Well, instead, Elon's proposed tunnel was designed only for Tesla cars and could only move a fraction of the people that a subway system would be able to. The Hyperloop has been described as a death trap, by those who have used the only existing tunnel, which leads out of a Las Vegas convention center far from the interconnected network Elon proposed and already costing billions. Plus, that doubles the death traps for anyone using the Hyperloop, since they not only risk asphyxiation after being stuck in their car in a cramped tunnel, but also death by burning alive in their bomb on wheels. Just like with Zip2, SpaceX, and now the Boring Company, Elon's only ideas are merely less efficient and more expensive versions of products or companies that already exist. And this applies to everything he's ever invented. Even his barbaric Neuralink brain chips are just pricey forms of animal cruelty. Any one of Elon Musk's absurd predictions and promises that have never come to pass should have killed any credibility he once had. But being a world-class expert in coming out with baseless claims is all part of his business strategy. By embellishing that he or his companies are capable of the impossible with enough confidence, he gets investors to take note and thereby channel funding his way. Doing it so publicly and audaciously has gotten Elon in hot water with the SEC in the past, though, after he lied about taking Tesla private while having no plans to do so. He has a track record that should make more people skeptical about every one of his ventures. Time and time again, Musk has proved that he cares more about his own image and greed than benefiting people. If anything, he's shown active contempt for working people by dehumanizing them with demonstrably poor working conditions, threats of financial ramifications, and unfeasible out-of-touch expectations. For someone so desperate for people to like him, he never seems to direct his vast amounts of wealth toward anything worthwhile. Oh, sorry, we stand corrected. He did give $1 million to plant trees, just once. He spent billions more trying to buy Twitter. Speaking of, after he had purchased enough stock to make himself the majority shareholder of the social media company, Elon Musk made a move to purchase Twitter for $44 billion. Not only was this much more than the company was valued at, Musk also became legally bound to go through with the purchase despite trying to back out in a series of back-and-forth lawsuits with Twitter. Eventually caving, he was determined to make it more than just a social media website where people make short posts within a given character limit, and instead intended for Twitter to be the most accurate source of information on the internet. And if you've spent any time on that corner of the internet since, you'll already know how well that's been going. Elon Musk proceeded to lay off almost 4,000 members of the staff, many of whom were responsible for the day-to-day running of the website. He also seemed to have a preference for inflicting these manic and spontaneous firings on anyone who tried to present him with the reality of implementing the new changes he had in mind for the site. Most of these were either pointless, like monetizing verification checkmarks, or outright dangerous, like relaxing Twitter's content moderation and allowing for a rise in racist and anti-LGBTQ hate speech on the platform. Some of these callous firings were done publicly via Twitter itself, especially whenever Musk would tweet about the current state of the website. On multiple occasions, he would make a declaration about the technical aspects of running the website that was in all instances inaccurate, only to be corrected by an employee working at Twitter. He would then fire said employee highly unprofessionally via a reply tweet before deleting threads and claiming their suggestions of fixing issues with the site as his own ideas, issues that had been caused largely by his earlier firing of the relevant support staff. Twitter Blue was Musk's newest invention, wherein users could pay a monthly subscription fee to have a blue checkmark, previously reserved for companies and celebrities to confirm that their tweets were their own, and not those of an imitator. Blue was an attempt by Elon to make back some of the money he lost on his obligation to buy Twitter, as well as that lost from advertisers who began leaving the platform in droves after the rise in hate speech. Understandably, most companies don't want their advertisements appearing in someone's feed alongside unsavory tweets. More recently, at the time of this writing, Elon rebranded the site to kill off any remaining vestiges of the original Twitter. Still pushing for the most poorly marketable name ever, X.com was dragged back from the grave, becoming the new name for Twitter. Musk has declared his intention for X to become the everything app, akin to WeChat, which is widely used in China and combines a number of online services. Elon intends for people to be able to use X.com not only as a social app, but as an online banking service. Understandably, nobody wants to hand over their sensitive banking details to a company where their information could be at risk of being stolen, thanks to Twitter/X losing a huge portion of its cybersecurity department when Elon fired them. There is still a huge list of deplorable things that Musk has been responsible for, so many that if we were to detail all of them, this video would probably double in length. Among just a few in recent memory was his harassment of a female flight attendant, his suing of a Tesla whistleblower for $167 million, and bullying a 19-year-old who ran a Twitter page about Elon's own private jet, only posting information based on publicly accessible flight logs. And to round things off, not that long ago, Elon received praise from Russian President Vladimir Putin after interfering with the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Musk denied a request by the Ukrainian military for internet access via his Starlink satellite, which they needed in order to coordinate defenses against invading Russian forces. Denying them access meant that Musk had essentially sabotaged the Ukrainian military's attempts to defend themselves. Despite the ugly truth about Elon Musk being easy to find for those who are willing to look for it, he still garners a delusional cult following born of his relatable online persona, making his devotees believe he's an ordinary guy just like them. In reality, Elon couldn't be any more out of touch with the average person. It's all just a distraction from what he really is: a greedy man with too much power and a frightening disregard for the safety and well-being of anyone he views as beneath him. The world watches the night sky in anticipation. Nukes have been deployed across Mars and will be detonated simultaneously. There's a bright flash of light as the red dot in the sky is replaced by a white glow. The bombs have gone off on Mars and now bathe its surface in intense heat and radiation. The hope is that by nuking the crap out of the red planet, we can terraform it into a hospitable place for humans to live. But will this actually work? Let's find out. Nuking Mars as a means of terraforming the planet was brought to the public's attention by Elon Musk on a late-night talk show. It's important to keep in mind that Elon is not a scientist. He does not have an advanced degree in the sciences, nor has he ever published a peer-reviewed study pertaining to any of the sciences. Yes, he does have a BS in physics, yet unfortunately most of his coursework was in solid-state physics, which does not make him an expert in geology, biology, climate physics, or pretty much anything to do with terraforming. We just want to bring this to your attention and point out that he's not the most credible source for science-related information. Therefore, when he says something like, dropping thermonuclear weapons over the poles would allow us to terraform Mars, his statement should be taken with a grain of salt. To be fair, anyone wearing a Nuke Mars t-shirt probably shouldn't be the first person you ask for ideas on how to terraform our neighboring planet. But could Elon Musk's plan be so crazy that it could work? The basic premise behind nuking Mars is to release greenhouse gases into the atmosphere that would warm up the planet. Currently, the average temperature of Mars is around -81 degrees Fahrenheit. Obviously, this is inhospitable for humans and pretty much every life form on planet Earth. In order to increase the temperature of our neighboring planet, we need to put more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere so that heat can be retained. Now, keep in mind, we are somewhat experts on how to do this as we are dumping greenhouse gases into our own atmosphere every day. This is what's driving climate change and leading to the global temperature increase on our planet. However, unlike Mars, we shouldn't be warming Earth as it'll have drastic consequences for humans and all living things on our planet. But you might be surprised to learn that what we're doing to our planet today may actually help us terraform Mars in the future. Currently, the majority of Mars's atmosphere is made up of carbon dioxide, which is an important greenhouse gas, but there's just not enough of it. Water vapor is also a greenhouse gas that can increase the planet's temperature. Since Mars has a decent amount of water frozen at its poles, nuking them could convert the ice into water vapor, which then would be released into the atmosphere. The combination of CO2, H2O, and other greenhouse gases in Earth's atmosphere is what keeps our planet so toasty and allows us to live so comfortably on it. So Elon's idea is to change the composition of Mars's atmosphere to allow it to retain heat and become our second home. In theory, nuking Mars would most certainly release water vapor and even more CO2 into the atmosphere, but there are a couple of problems with the plan. A recent study conducted by Bruce Jakowski and Christopher Edwards, two scientists from the University of Colorado Boulder and Northern Arizona University Flagstaff, respectively, has shown that there just isn't enough ice on Mars to change the temperature of the planet, even if it all was vaporized and deposited into the atmosphere by nukes. This puts a huge hole in Elon's plans for terraforming the planet, although this doesn't seem to be a deterrent for the owner of SpaceX and Tesla. Elon has also stated that by nuking Mars, CO2 stored in the planet's rocks and crust would be released into the atmosphere, but again, the actual scientists who have analyzed the data have concluded that there isn't enough CO2 contained within the surface rocks on Mars to warm up the planet to hospitable levels. The reason for this is that Martian rocks are very different from Earth rocks. The rocks on the Earth contain a lot of CO2, like limestone, and get help from microbes that sequester carbon within them. It's a mixing of living and non-living processes that allow high amounts of carbon to get trapped within the rocks of Earth. On Mars, however, those biotic processes do not take place. The only process that traps CO2 within the rocks of Mars is the slow seeping of molecules from the atmosphere into the surface of the planet. This is not a very efficient process. But the lack of significant amounts of CO2 and water on Mars is not the only problem that Elon's plan faces. Unlike Earth, the red planet does not have a magnetic field protecting it. This means that solar winds tend to eject gases from Mars's atmosphere into space. With every lost particle, the greenhouse gases that were put into the atmosphere by the nukes would be reduced, eventually returning the Martian atmosphere into its original composition. On top of this, scientists have noted that even though Mars is smaller than Earth, its distance from the Sun requires that it have a similar atmospheric pressure as Earth in order to support human life. Its atmosphere also needs to contain the same amount of CO2 as Earth in order to warm the planet to suitable temperatures. However, it's estimated that even if the entire planet were nuked to release the water from the ice caps and carbon dioxide into the air, the resulting gases would only make Mars's atmospheric pressure 1.2% of Earth's. This is not nearly high enough, which further hinders the Nuke Mars plan. What the science tells us is that Elon's plan to nuke Mars would not result in the planet being terraformed. There would be an increase in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, but it would not be enough to significantly alter the climate of the planet. And on top of that, there's a pretty obvious negative side effect to using nuclear weapons to blow up the surface of an entire planet. Detonating nukes comes with a large amount of radiation. If we detonated enough nukes to liberate all the water from the ice caps and surface rocks, the entire planet would be irradiated from the bombs. This kind of defeats the purpose of terraforming because humans would not be able to step foot on the surface until the radiation levels went down. It would likely take a very long time for the radiation to reach acceptable levels, but since no one has ever nuked an entire planet before, it's hard to tell exactly how long. There is reason to believe that it could take decades before we'd be safe to send an expedition to Mars after detonating nukes across the planet, and it could be even longer before it'd be safe to grow plants on the Martian surface. Another nasty consequence of blowing up Mars with nukes is that it could send the planet into a nuclear winter. Again, it kind of defeats the purpose of terraforming the planet if we can't live on it. If enough dust and particles were kicked up into the atmosphere, they could block the sun's light from reaching the Martian surface. This would cause the temperature to drop even lower than it currently is. Eventually, the particles would settle out of the atmosphere, and at that point, the temperature would start to rise. But since we know there isn't enough water or carbon dioxide on the surface of the planet to raise the temperature to adequate levels, nuking Mars is not a great option. So, the Nuke Mars plan is pretty silly, especially if the end goal is to terraform the planet. But is there a different way to terraform Mars so that humans could someday live on it? There absolutely is, and you wouldn't even have to detonate a single bomb. In order for Mars to be terraformed into a planet that humans could live on without spacesuits, the global temperature needs to increase significantly. The Nuke Mars plan had the right idea of putting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, but its method of execution was all wrong. The first step should be to stop the loss of greenhouse gases from solar storms and high-energy particles from the sun. When these phenomena interact with the Martian atmosphere, they can cause molecules such as CO2 and H2O to be ejected into space. In order to stop this from happening, a former NASA scientist has an idea. Jim Green has developed a plan to block the sun's harmful effects on Mars's atmosphere. Green has proposed that humans could launch a series of spacecraft to set up a magnetic shield between Mars and the sun. The shield would act as a kind of clear umbrella that blocks harmful radiation while allowing certain wavelengths of light to reach the red planet. The shield itself would not block all of the sun's light, but instead protect Mars in a similar way to how Earth's magnetic field protects our planet. This would prevent molecules in Mars's atmosphere from being ejected to the depths of space and allow them to build up over time. By reducing the number of greenhouse gases lost in this way, the Martian atmosphere would become thicker and cause the planet to warm up. This would allow Mars to begin the terraforming process without any human intervention on the planet itself. It would be an incredibly slow process and would not result in a habitable Mars. But it would definitely be a step in the right direction and one that humans need to consider if we're going to live on the planet. The trickiest part of the whole thing is putting the shield in the right place. Precise calculations would need to be made to ensure that the magnetic shield follows the orbit of Mars and keeps it protected. If the magnetic shield deviated from its course by even a few millimeters, Mars would no longer be in its shadow, and the sun's radiation would strip particles from the atmosphere again. Right now, we have the technology to start planning for the magnetic shield, but calculations and contingency plans need to be put in place before a successful mission can be launched. The protective shield will not get the job done all on its own. We still need to find a way to put more greenhouse gases into the Martian atmosphere. Although there isn't enough CO2 on the surface rocks of Mars, there might be enough deeper within the planet. This means that nuking the surface would release a small amount of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, but to successfully terraform Mars, we need to go deeper. Minerals located further underground could contain more CO2 than the surface, and therefore might be the location where we find the greenhouse gases we need to make Mars hospitable for humans. The problem with this plan is that the entire surface of Mars would need to be mined first. This would be a drilling operation on a massive scale. We currently don't have the technology to do this. However, in the future, you can imagine a humongous fleet of autonomous robots that are sent to Mars to continuously harvest and vaporize rocks and release their stored carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. It's estimated that by mining the surface of the entire planet down to a depth of 100 yards, we might be able to release enough greenhouse gases into the atmosphere to increase the temperature of the planet. However, we don't actually know if there's enough CO2 contained within the buried Martian rocks and minerals to create the desired effect, even if the whole planet is strip mined. We're working with best estimates, but until we put boots on the ground and learn more about the Red Planet, this scenario is only based on what little data we have available. The other problem with the harvesting method is that it would require a massive amount of energy in order to vaporize the number of rocks and minerals needed to terraform the planet. Even if we detonated all the nukes we currently have on Mars, it wouldn't be enough. Scientists think the only way to generate adequate constant energy is by using a source of fusion power similar to the Sun. However, we do not have the technology to create a fusion reactor yet, which means we have a lot of work to do before we can vaporize the surface of Mars. Theoretically, if humans could develop a machine capable of generating a fusion reaction, and could put a magnetic shield between Mars and the Sun, terraforming could begin. There is a concern that a lot of the planet would need to be destroyed just to increase its temperature, but it might be necessary if we're ever going to live on the Red Planet. There are a few other methods that humans could use to change the climate of the planet. Unfortunately, we still need to develop the technology to carry out this next terraforming method successfully, and even then it'll be incredibly destructive. Another way we might change the atmospheric composition of Mars and turn it into a livable planet could be by bombarding it with asteroids. All the nukes in the world aren't as powerful as slamming a giant asteroid into the Red Planet. But asteroids come with another benefit besides just packing an enormous punch that can vaporize the Martian surface. Some scientists believe that by capturing a large asteroid full of ice and ammonia, we can deliver the energy needed to release water and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere while simultaneously adding more greenhouse gases to the planet. The ice trapped within the asteroid could evaporate into the Martian atmosphere after impact, and the ammonia also serves as its own greenhouse gas. Between the energy released on impact that will convert the Martian surface into usable greenhouse gases, as well as the water and ammonia contained within the asteroid, the terraforming process could be sped up dramatically. There are definitely some logistical issues with this plan, such as how to harvest asteroids from the asteroid belt. But the technology to nudge space rocks in the direction of Mars is something we have right now. By landing a craft on the surface of an asteroid and using its thrusters to push the asteroid one way or the other, scientists could aim it at Mars. The tricky part will be finding asteroids with the right composition, and it'd be nice if they were in the general vicinity of Mars. Using asteroids to terraform Mars will take time. Missions will need to be carried out to identify the composition of the candidates, and then moving a 10 billion ton asteroid will not be easy. However, once it's set on the right trajectory, its momentum will carry the space rock straight through Mars's atmosphere and slam it into the planet. This will generate around 130 million megawatts of power, and the impact alone is calculated to raise the temperature of the planet by around 35 degrees. This change in temperature would likely result in some of the ice caps on Mars melting, which means the asteroid would not need to be directly aimed at the poles to cause the Martian water to evaporate into the atmosphere. Unfortunately, just one 10 billion ton asteroid would not be enough to terraform the planet. Over the course of decades, Mars would need to be bombarded with asteroid after asteroid. With each impact, more greenhouse gases would be added to the atmosphere, but in order to reach levels that would raise the temperature enough to sustain life, there would need to be dozens of impacts. With each asteroid strike, the planet would undergo a period of warming followed by a period of cooling until all the surface particles that were ejected into the atmosphere settled back on the Martian surface. This means using asteroids to terraform Mars could work, but it would take centuries to accomplish. Perhaps the easiest way to terraform Mars is by doing what we're doing to our own planet. By setting up factories and burning fuels that release CO2 and other greenhouse gases into the air, we could create climate change on Mars. This would not be a cost-effective method to terraform the planet, as a lot of materials and resources would need to be brought from Earth, but it could theoretically work. We'd have to launch countless missions with supplies and colonists to build settlements and factories on the surface of Mars. The terraforming communities would need to live in biodomes and artificial habitats for centuries until the terraforming process could be completed. But given enough time and resources, we could create greenhouse gas factories on the surface of Mars. As of right now, we don't know all the fuel sources or natural resources available on Mars, so early expeditions would need to gather intel for the colonization of the red planet. Once we knew exactly what was available, we could supplement it with materials from Earth or harvested from asteroids. The colonists could set up giant factories where they burn Martian rocks and heavy metals. They could also run air conditioning machines that produce chlorofluorocarbons. Chlorofluorocarbons are gases that destroy ozone here on Earth and were molecules generated through the use of appliances such as old air conditioners and refrigerators. Scientists eventually discovered how damaging they were to the atmosphere, and now chlorofluorocarbons are banned in most countries. But they would be incredibly useful as greenhouse gases on Mars. By burning certain substances, releasing chlorofluorocarbons, and melting the ice caps of Mars, colonists could now slowly change the atmosphere without nuking the planet or slamming countless asteroids into it. Obviously, one of the main issues with this plan is the colony would need to be set up first, which would require tons of resources and take a very long time. But in the end, humans would have a new planet to live on, so it might all well be worth it. There may also be a way to increase temperatures on Mars from space. This does not negate the fact that greenhouse gases still need to be increased, but some scientists think that by using a giant mirror, the Martian surface could be warmed up considerably. The craziest part of this plan is that the mirror would need to be very, very large. In fact, the mirror would have to be able to shine light on one entire side of the planet. It's important that the mirror intensifies the sunlight across the entire surface, because if it's only focused on one area, the greenhouse gases generated from the warming rocks wouldn't be enough to create global temperature change. The more surface that's being hit by the reflected sunlight, the more evenly distributed the temperature will rise. This also would cause the melting of the ice caps and the release of carbon dioxide trapped within the Martian rocks. But like with the nuking plan, the mirror itself will not be enough, since there just aren't enough greenhouse gases on the surface of the red planet. So the best terraforming solution for Mars is probably a combination of all the strategies mentioned. Maybe we detonate nukes at the poles to get things going. This would be followed by a greenhouse gas-rich asteroid slamming into the planet. Finally, a giant mirror would continuously bombard Mars with intense light. Then, after decades of waiting for things to settle, we could send an army of spaceships filled with colonists and engineers to build factories to make chlorofluorocarbons and release carbon dioxide. There are also other problems that we need to solve, even after we raise the temperature of the planet. Once we get the greenhouse gases to the right levels and Mars reaches a habitable climate, we'll need to put oxygen into the atmosphere for us to breathe. Oxygen is not a greenhouse gas, but it's definitely something we'll need in order to survive on the newly terraformed Mars. The best way to generate enough oxygen to sustain life on Mars is to grow plants across the planet. Unfortunately, plants take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere to conduct photosynthesis, which then releases oxygen back into the air. This would be slightly counterproductive, as humanity just spent decades or even centuries trying to build up the amount of greenhouse gases on Mars. A solution to this might be that when increasing greenhouse gases on Mars, we slightly overshoot the number needed, so there's enough for the plants to use while also maintaining a warm climate. However, growing plants on Mars is easier said than done. The Martian soil is devoid of all nutrients, which means we'll need to find a way to fertilize the entire planet. Once we're able to create dirt where pioneering species like lichen, fungi, and bacteria can thrive, they'll convert rocks and sand into usable soil, like here on Earth. Think of it kind of like plants colonizing a new island that's formed in the middle of the ocean. Except instead of an island, it's an entire planet, and instead of an ocean, it's the vastness of space. We may have to do some genetic engineering to give these pioneering species the ability to thrive on Mars first. But by the time we're at that step in the terraforming process, who knows what kind of crazy technology we'll have available to us. With all the talk of nuking, harvesting resources, and changing the atmosphere of Mars, comes an ethical question. Do we even have the right to modify an entire planet to suit our needs? On the one hand, there's no living things on Mars as far as we know. If we were to discover that there was microbial life or Martians living below the surface of the planet, that would change everything, or at least it should. NASA has gone to great lengths to ensure anything that's landed on the red planet is thoroughly sterilized and doesn't carry with it microbes from Earth. Certain bacteria and other extremophiles can survive in the most hostile conditions, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that with the right adaptations, they could find a way to thrive on Mars. But if there are already microbes living on the planet that have yet to be discovered, would it still be okay for us to change their environment? Even if there are no living things on Mars, should the humans of Earth bombard one of our planetary neighbors with nuclear bombs and asteroids? These are questions to take into consideration when planning to terraform an entire planet. With the way things are going on Earth right now, we might not have a choice. Between overconsumption of resources and the amount of damage we're doing to the environment, sending humans to another planet might be an inevitability. But there's also the argument of putting all your eggs in one basket. If anything were to happen to Earth, like a gamma ray burst blowing our atmosphere into space, or a giant asteroid impact decimating all life on the planet, the human species would go extinct. For right now, we have no backup plan for our species. Therefore, it could be argued that terraforming Mars isn't just a good idea but necessary for the continuation of the human race. What it comes down to is that we do not have the technology to do this quite yet. And just to reiterate our initial point, nuking Mars will not allow us to terraform it. So we should probably throw that idea out the window. No matter what Elon or any other futurist says, terraforming Mars is just not possible with today's tech. If and when we do finally have the ability to terraform a planet, it'll likely be done using a combination of different techniques discussed in the video. We'll probably need a magnetic shield, a giant mirror, and a way to pump greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Asteroids and the resources they contain will be incredibly important, not just for terraforming Mars, but for the future of space exploration in general. The only way any of these dreams will become a reality is if we listen to science and continue shooting for the stars, both figuratively and literally. Space exploration has slowed considerably since the Apollo missions that first landed humans on the moon. If nothing else, Elon and other private space companies have reinvigorated our interest in space travel. However, we'll need to continue to fund scientific missions and technological research if we're ever going to successfully terraform Mars. To the surprise of absolutely no one, online retail giant Amazon has positively thrived during the recent pandemic, making its owner, multi-billionaire Jeff Bezos, even more wealthy than ever before. And he was plenty rich before the pandemic hit. And yet, despite record-breaking success for Amazon in 2020, by early January 2021, Bezos had been shockingly ousted from the top spot on the Forbes list of the world's richest people. And the financial world was shocked by how Elon Musk became the richest person in the world. Elon Musk's climb to the top is a fascinating story because it might just be the fastest rise in wealth creation in all of history. In March 2020, less than 1 year before he was crowned the world's richest, Musk had a net worth of only $27 billion and had just barely cracked Bloomberg's list of the world's top 50 richest people. In just 9 short months, Musk added more than $165 billion to his net worth to claim the top spot among the world's richest billionaires. By November 2020, Musk had climbed all the way to the top 5 richest people in the world, and that's when his rise to the top started in earnest. Within a month, Musk overtook both Facebook creator Mark Zuckerberg and Microsoft's Bill Gates to become the 3rd richest person in the world. In December 2020, he passed French tycoon Bernard Arnault to take the number 2 spot. That left Musk behind only Jeff Bezos and Amazon, who were seemingly untouchable coming off of a record year in 2020, thanks to a surge in business generated by the pandemic. But to the shock of the financial world, Musk did the impossible. In early January 2021, Musk's net worth surged to $190 billion, nearly $5 billion ahead of Bezos. So how did he do it? How did Elon Musk rise through the ranks of the world's billionaires and tycoons to become the world's richest person in less than a year? Well, that might be best illustrated by his own response to the news that he had hit number 1. Musk replied to a tweet that announced his ascension to the number 1 spot by saying simply, "How strange. Well, back to work." Indeed, hard work has been the key to Musk's impressive success. While his rise to the top may have seemed to happen overnight, the truth is that Musk has been working toward this moment his entire life, putting his heart and soul into every project he undertakes. Musk's electric car company Tesla was launched in 2003, but only turned its first profit in 2020. In 2018, when Tesla was plagued by production delays, Musk told reporters that he was back to sleeping at the factory, dedicating his every waking hour to getting things back on track. Without that kind of intense focus and work ethic, Musk would never have been able to rise through the ranks of the world's wealthiest. Of course, such an incredible and rapid rise to the top of the world's wealthiest people doesn't come without controversy. Musk has been accused of being complicit in the deaths of child laborers in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where children are forced to work in brutal conditions to mine cobalt, a valuable and essential material required for manufacturing computers. Tesla workers have also spoken out against Musk's hardline stance against unions, claiming that any pro-union activities within his factories are swiftly shut down. Hard work may be Musk's secret to success, but that success hasn't come without a healthy dose of ruthlessness and controversy too. It is an inescapable economic truth that you'll never truly get wealthy by working for someone else. Entrepreneurship is the only path to becoming one of the world's richest people. Every billionaire that Musk passed on his way to the top, from Gates to Zuckerberg to Warren Buffett and even Jeff Bezos, every one of them got where they are by building extremely profitable and scalable businesses, and Elon Musk is no exception. Innovation and entrepreneurship seem to be in Elon Musk's DNA, though being born into a wealthy South African family certainly didn't hurt. He first discovered his love of computers and technology at the age of 10, and after teaching himself to code, launched his business career at age 12 when he sold his first software, a computer game called Blaster. At 17, he moved to Canada to attend Queen's University and to avoid the mandatory military service in his home country of South Africa. As his mother was Canadian, Musk obtained his Canadian citizenship that same year, but he already had his sights set on the future. He figured Canadian citizenship would be a stepping stone to hitting his ultimate goal, U.S. citizenship. 3 years later, Musk fulfilled his dream and moved to the U.S. to attend the University of Pennsylvania, where he earned 2 bachelor's degrees in economics and physics. His next step was the prestigious Stanford University, where he enrolled in the PhD program in energy physics, but the boy genius would last just 2 days at Stanford before dropping out. His arrival in California had coincided with the internet boom, and Musk and his brother Kimball took a huge gamble, leaving behind the world of higher education and launching their first startup company, online city directory Zip2. Musk's gamble paid off big time. Through hard work and tireless effort, Musk had built a hugely popular and profitable business, and in 1999, Musk sold Zip2 to Compaq for the astonishing price of $307 million, plus more than $30 million in stock options. But rather than sit back and enjoy success, Musk showed the first glimpses of the uncanny business acumen that would later help him climb the list of the world's wealthiest people. He immediately turned around and invested the proceeds from the sale of his first company to fund his next venture, X.com, an online payment platform that would later become PayPal. 2002 was a banner year for Musk. He fulfilled one of his life's goals when he became a U.S. citizen, and he also earned his first billion at age 30 when he sold PayPal to eBay for $1.5 billion. But Musk was not done. Far from it. Finally, he had the money to go after his true lifelong dream. As Musk explains in a tweet pinned to the top of his Twitter profile, about half my money is intended to help problems on Earth and half to help establish a self-sustaining city on Mars to ensure continuation of life of all species in case Earth gets hit by a meteor like the dinosaurs or World War III happens and we destroy ourselves. The sincerity of Musk's desire to solve the world's problems may be dubious at best. The billionaire has been accused of hoarding his wealth rather than using it to make a tangible difference in the world. But with that ambitious goal in mind and the proceeds of his latest sale in his pocket, Musk went on to launch 2 companies that certainly changed the world as we know it and would eventually propel him to the top of the list of the world's richest people. Musk created SpaceX in 2003 to build spacecraft for commercial travel. It may have been a far-fetched dream at the time, but by 2008 he had successfully secured contracts with NASA to supply cargo to the International Space Station. In 2012, he made history when SpaceX launched the first unmanned Falcon 9 rocket on a resupply mission to the ISS, marking the first time that a private company had sent a spacecraft to the space station. Musk eventually plans to use SpaceX to shuttle astronauts to the ISS as NASA moves away from using its own craft, but his focus is always on the ultimate long-term goal of colonizing Mars. SpaceX may be a revolutionary success story, but the real secret to Musk's success, at least as far as his position of richest person in the world is concerned, is Tesla. Musk also launched Tesla in 2003 using funds from the PayPal sale, and at the time his ambitions for the electric car company seemed as outrageous as his plans to colonize Mars. Musk wanted to take on the giants of the auto industry with affordable, mass-market electric cars, an idea that seemed ludicrous in the early 2000s. Against all odds, Musk's hard work once again paid off, and Tesla's surprising success paved the way for Musk to enter the exclusive realm of the world's richest and wealthiest people. By 2017, Tesla had overtaken General Motors to become the most valuable car maker in the US, and Tesla's all-electric sports car, the Roadster, is set to be one of the fastest production cars ever made. But things really kicked up a notch in 2020, pushing Musk over the edge to become the world's wealthiest person. Tesla's share price skyrocketed in 2020, increasing by a staggering 720% in that year alone. In the first few weeks of 2021, the stock climbed another 20%, giving Musk the final push he needed to crack the top spot on the list of the world's richest. Tesla is now valued at more than $700 billion, more than Toyota, Volkswagen, Hyundai, General Motors, and Ford combined. Musk's unmatched work ethic and his forward thinking, as well as his ruthlessness, have certainly played a key role in the rise of Tesla stock. But Musk was helped along in his journey to becoming the richest person in the world by some factors that were entirely outside of his control. For one thing, despite Musk's surprising ties to Trump early in his presidency, the recent U.S. election results might have prompted renewed faith in the future of the electric car industry in general, as Democrats are generally seen as more friendly to green agendas with things like tax credits for consumers who buy electric vehicles. Surprisingly, the pandemic might have also helped Tesla and Musk reach new heights. According to the Institute for Policy Studies, the 500 richest people in the world increased their combined wealth by a stunning $1.8 trillion in 2020, and the U.S.'s 651 homegrown billionaires alone grew their wealth by more than $1 trillion over just 9 months. It's clear that the pandemic provided a healthy boost to all of the ultra-rich, but perhaps none so much as Amazon's Jeff Bezos. Still, despite a record-shattering year for Amazon in 2020, some key events in the life of the CEO Jeff Bezos played a huge role in allowing Elon Musk to bypass him to become the world's richest person. Not only did he lose some of his stake in Amazon in his divorce settlement, handing over 4% of his shares to his ex-wife Mackenzie Scott, but he also donated shares worth more than $680 million through his Bezos Earth Fund in November of 2020. Those losses added up to a big drop in Bezos' net worth, and might have been as much to blame for Musk passing Bezos in the list of world's richest people as anything Musk himself did. By the way, how does the richest person in the world spend their money? Probably not the way we'd expect. When Musk first started his climb up the ladder of the world's richest people, he certainly went on a buying spree, snapping up over $100 million worth of prime California real estate, including a $17 million 1.67-acre estate, complete with a 2-story library, a private gym, a personal home theater, and a 1,000-bottle wine cellar. However, in 2020, Musk started to sell off his properties, telling reporters that he planned to eventually own no home. And it's not just real estate that the billionaire plans to get rid of. In 2012, Musk signed the Giving Pledge, vowing to give away and donate the majority of his wealth during his lifetime, though he's yet to live up to this promise. At the head of one of the world's most innovative auto companies, perhaps it's not surprising that Musk has an affinity for cars. He purchased the Lotus Esprit submarine car from a James Bond movie at auction for $920,000. He also owns a Ford Model T and a Jaguar E-Type Series 1 Roadster, both gas-powered. But other than a taste for fine cars, Musk insists that he's simply too busy to live a lavish lifestyle. He's told reporters that he frequently works 120-hour weeks, and that he's only taken a total of 2 weeks off in the last 12 years since he founded Tesla. He even spent his 48th birthday in 2019 at Tesla working on global logistics for the company. Musk definitely doesn't live like a typical billionaire. He says he enjoys inexpensive hobbies like playing video games, listening to music and reading, and spending time with his kids and his friends. But, he says, whenever he has any free time, it's usually work more. Through hard work and laser-like focus, and with a generous helping of luck, Elon Musk managed to do the impossible once again, surpassing Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos to become the richest person in the world as of January 2021. In the cutthroat world of business, only time will tell whether Musk will be able to hang on to the top spot. Musk was right on point when he tweeted, "Back to work," in response to the news that he was the world's richest person. Tesla is still a relatively new company, and it only turned its first profit in 2020. Musk's recent ascension to the top of the list of the world's richest people has only put more pressure on the billionaire innovator to prove that Tesla can live up to expectations and become more profitable than the entire motor industry combined in order to justify its current valuation, which is the cornerstone of Musk's net worth. No matter how Elon Musk became the richest person in the world, and regardless of whether he manages to stay at the top, we're sure to see some interesting things from Musk and Tesla in the future.
This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make it with Squarespace. Entrepreneur Elon Musk doesn't exactly mirror some of his technorati contemporaries. Rather than a man that fits the corporate glove, at times he seems more of a maverick or a soothsayer depicting what lies ahead. He's been belittled by critics for what they say are outlandish ideas regarding artificial intelligence and how it might destroy humankind, and is sometimes called a dreamer when he states that under his guidance, scores of humans will, in the not-too-distant future, be living on his Mars colonies after hitching a ride on his company's interplanetary transport system. He's talked about the need for a universal basic income when the robots have finally risen, and makes no qualms about stating he will lead us into this brave new world. With that in mind, how does he compare to you? That's what we'll find out in this episode of the Infographic Show, Elon Musk versus the average American. Be sure to subscribe and click that bell button so that you can be part of our notification squad. The 46-year-old Musk was born on June 28, 1971 in Pretoria, South Africa. He shares his birth date with the notorious King Henry VIII, as well as actor John Cusack and French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau. If you follow Musk, you could say he shares some traits with all three of these men. At once a rebellious leader, a believer in futuristic social contracts, and also somewhat a celebrity figure among rather dry tech kingpins. Musk has Dutch and British ancestry. This puts him with a rather large group in the US who claim to have either Dutch or British ancestors. When Business Insider put together a list of where Americans claim to have ancestry, Germany came top, with a little over 49 million Americans saying that's where their bloodline goes back to. Black or African Americans were next at a little over 41 million, and Irish third at 35.5 million. As part Dutch, he joins another 4.8 million Americans. It seems his mother is part English, part German, which links Musk with nearly 27 million English Americans, and we already know how many German Americans there are. Some sources also point out that there are many more English Americans, but people no longer identify with that lineage and simply say that they are full-blooded Americans. Musk is also white, as are around 73% of all Americans. Musk was, by all accounts, a bit of a nerd and a computer whiz when he was just a child. His precociousness didn't go down too well with some of the more dunderheaded kids in school, and Musk was the victim of severe bullying. According to a report by the National Center for Educational Statistics, Musk joins 20.8% of American kids that are bullied. Musk was studying in South Africa though, not America. In the book Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the Quest for a Fantastic Future, it states that young Elon was thrown down some steps by bullies and had to be hospitalized, so this was more than just name-calling. The US government website Stop Bullying tells us that 29.2% of bullied middle school kids have experienced physical violence against them. But, in the words of German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, that which does not kill us makes us stronger, and Elon powered past the bullying. He became a self-taught computer programmer by the age of 12. While autodidactism is rare in most areas of expertise, in 2016 a Stack Overflow poll found that 69.1% of software developers were self-taught. They just didn't do it as early as Musk, we might expect. Young Elon sold his first game at 12 and made a handsome $500. This is impressive, but not as impressive as 7-year-old child prodigy Mohammed Hamza Shahzad, who became a certified programmer at 7. He is British though, so Musk can still hold his head up high in the US. Before moving to Canada, Musk was educated in private schools, so you could say he had a head start. If you've seen our show on private and public schools, you'll know he joins just 10% of kids in these sometimes posh schools, or 5.1 million students. He graduated high school, and so joins about 95% of private school kids that graduated, and around 80 to 83% of all Americans that graduate today. In 1997, he received a Bachelor of Science degree in physics, a degree which around 8,000 Americans received in 2015. According to APS, in 1997, the number was about half of that. Musk also started a PhD at Stanford University, but like many tech entrepreneurs, he dropped out in pursuit of his dream. According to a Michigan EECS professor, Musk joins another 50% of PhD students that don't make it to the end in the US. Musk formed the company Zip2 and sold it for millions, and then started X.com and PayPal. After selling Zip in 1999, Musk became a millionaire many times over at the age of 28. Only 3% of the 323 plus million people in America are millionaires, and of those, the average person has to wait until they are 32 to reach that point. Musk received $22 million in one shot. As for other Americans with degrees, Musk is somewhat out-earning them. While the average American has savings of $6,676, excluding property, according to the US Census Bureau, advanced degree holders on average earn $72,824 a year. Musk teamed up with Peter Thiel to form PayPal, and soon the pair were billionaires. He debuted on the Forbes Billionaires list in 2012 with a reported worth of $2 billion. At 41, he was perhaps an old billionaire compared to his compatriots Mark Zuckerberg, billionaire at 23, or Snapchat's Evan Spiegel, billionaire at 25. Still, it's thought it takes the average billionaire around the world until the age of 63 to amass their fortune. According to Forbes, in 2016 there were 540 billionaires in the United States, with a total fortune of $2.399 trillion. Musk's worth today is thought to be $19.3 billion, slightly more than the average Americans in his age group who would have $84,000 if they sold everything they owned. To get an idea of his wealth, if Elon spent $1 million every day, it would take him a little over 52 years to finish off his present cash pile if he never earned another penny. He'd be 98 and probably have a lot of gadgets, houses, planes, and cars. He already owns 5 multi-million-dollar properties, picking up his last one in Bel Air, Los Angeles in 2016. According to Variety, this last house cost him $24,250,000. It has 7 bedrooms, 7 full bathrooms, 4 half bathrooms, and is 20,248 square feet. It also boasts public entertainment rooms, a 2-story library, a home theater, a large gym, and a 1,000-bottle wine cellar, according to Variety. The average American house on the market now is going for $385,200 and is 2,687 square feet in size. Musk has 2 cars. cars, a Ford Model T, and a beautiful-looking Jaguar Series 1 1967 E-Type Roadster. We found one of these on sale online at time of writing, costing $289,500. It's thought that the average household in the US owns 1.9 personal vehicles, and while that might make our man Musk a little average for once in this show, the average cost of a car in America in 2016 was $25,449. We should add that he also owns aircraft. Musk has been married and divorced, which is quite average for America, as around 40 to 50% of married Americans will separate. According to data from the National Survey of Family Growth, 70% of men that married between 2006 and 2010 have a probability of their relationship lasting a decade. Musk separated after 8 years. He had one child that died of sudden infant death syndrome. The CDC tells us that in 2015, 39.4 deaths occurred due to SIDS per 100,000 live births. Musk went on to have 5 children, all boys, via in vitro fertilization. In 2017, the fertility rate in the US is 62 births per 1,000 women aged 15 to 44. According to the New York Times, this is a record low. Musk was dating actress Amber Heard after her and Johnny Depp split, although gossip magazines tell us now he is single again. He is in good company, as a survey in 2016 found that the average American will have 7.2 partners. For those who are interested, Elon is 6 foot 2 inches tall and 220 pounds. The average height of an American man is 5 foot 9, and the average weight is 195 pounds. He seems like a decent fella, but word has it, he can be a nightmare to work with.
We all have our reasons for disliking a person in the public eye, but often the media has a hand in shaping our opinion of that person. The media likes nothing more than a hero to zero story, when the man or woman of the hour is later reduced to a villainous good-for-nothing. But we can't always blame the press after all. Sometimes the heroes dig their own graves by posting what seems like outlandish comments on their social media accounts. Twitter, it seems, is the go-to place where this happens, a kind of dumping ground for late-night thoughts that could be the noose that hangs someone. One errant comment could be the end of you, as John Ronson pointed out in his book, So You've Been Publicly Shamed. With that in mind, welcome to this episode of The Infographics Show. Why people all of a sudden hate Elon Musk. Before we get our teeth into the undoing of Elon Musk, let's first have a look at how he rose to fame. The young Musk grew up in South Africa, then later moved to Canada on the back of his mother's Canadian passport just before he hit 18. He always had a move to the US in mind though. Prior to that, Musk had excelled in many respects, developing a computer program at a very young age while also reading voraciously. Perhaps he lived the life of what we might call a nerd, an unflattering term in the past, although during Musk's lifetime, we would experience what you call a revenge of the nerds, as those young folks studying computer technology would become some of the most powerful people in the world. Nonetheless, life was tough for Musk as a kid. He was bullied, and at one point he was thrown down some stairs by his school enemies. This is a scene that has been talked about in the press numerous times, something we can't discount when we talk about his rise to fame. He was an underdog, and the American media, as most media, loves the narrative of a downtrodden nobody rising from the ashes. Musk has said in interviews that one of the reasons he was besotted with science was because he wanted to be involved with humanity's progression, the survival of our species. He said that he wanted to prolong civilization and, as best he could, help divert humanity from entering another dark age. This is highly commendable, but as we shall see later, these noble sentiments have also been part of his downfall. Inside the US, Musk powered along in the business world. He created the company Zip2 with his brother when he was just 24 years old. For his efforts, around 4 years later, he walked out of the sale of that company with around $22 million. But he's better known for the online payments company PayPal, which when it was sold gave him around $165 million. The young man had done well for himself, but he still wasn't a routine feature in the public's eye. He was an up-and-comer, an intrepid entrepreneur with a failing head of hair that looked like it was about to take off with the rest of his big ideas. There's a saying that goes, "Grass doesn't grow on a busy street," meaning people that think a lot might tend to go bald. Only bald men say this, of course, but Musk defied nature, something he's been doing his entire life. His hair grew back, perhaps with the aid of science, not broccoli, and his face was about to become a staple in our lives. We must blast through his career right now, as this is not an Elon Musk bio. The seemingly unstoppable entrepreneur then created SpaceX. He renewed the public's fascination with space exploration. He launched rockets into space and sent vehicles to the International Space Station. He promised us a colony on Mars, a future of space travel for everyone, not just astronauts. Perhaps his crowning glory, at least in terms of his celebrity, was when he launched one of his own Tesla cars into space as a dummy payload. Was there nothing this man couldn't do? Tesla was creating futuristic cars, developing self-driving technology at a speed as fast as anyone else. He promised us a place in space after we had destroyed planet Earth. In the meantime, he was developing technologies for cleaner power, trying to relieve some of the stress of our congested streets by digging holes underground, where we would ride in capsules to our destinations. For the good of mankind, he created OpenAI, which was in place to talk about the good, bad, and ugly of artificial intelligence going forward. He kept to his promise in that his mind was focused on creating technologies that helped mankind, that served progression, the betterment of civilization, that averted all-out destruction, and didn't only serve mankind's principal religion, money. Elon Musk became a Greek god sat up there on tech's Mount Olympus, except he was a rebellious god, part Dionysian, different from his Apollonian counterparts, the nice but dry tech gods of Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. So where did it all go wrong? Well, you could say some things were gradual and others sent him right into media Hades. While Musk's warnings regarding the end-of-world scenarios were to some people very important, if you follow the tech media, you'll see over a few years his sandwich board "It's the end of the world as we know it" forecast started to grate on people. Musk predicted that global warming might end us all. As for advanced tech, he once said competition for AI at national levels will most likely cause World War III. He also said something strange has to happen to civilizations, and I mean strange in a bad way. There is nothing wrong with having concerns, but we all know that people have been predicting the end of time since time began. Before Musk really fell from the public's graces, he had already become a doomsday prepper. And to the public and even science, his bleak outlook was somewhat hysterical. What annoyed people even more was that he was the man to save the world, which critics said was certainly a Greek god complex. Still, to others, the scenario of catastrophic global warming, a world war to finish us off for good, or creating machines that are far more intelligent than us, which soon start to find our company boring. Well, Musk's sermons were not exactly out of touch with reality. It's just preachers of doom don't often go well with one's cornflakes in the morning. We don't all want another dark ages shoved down our throats as we get on the bus to work. The great technologist was becoming a thorn in some people's sides, and not many people like being preached to by billionaires who have answers to all of our problems. Musk needed allies, and he didn't have that many. He was still a tech rebel with a cause, but his pessimism didn't have much virtual funding. His predictions and confident solutions seem hubristic, and hubris always ends with a fall. It's a zero-sum game, and when you act like you are bulletproof, above the gods even, people will only kick you when you're down. But that wasn't his downfall. That was only the beginning, a nascent thread that Musk was, unbeknownst to him, unwinding. While Musk's companies Tesla and SpaceX didn't exactly have a smooth ride, the fact that he dug his feet in only served his greatness. But then in 2018, the year Musk admitted had been the hardest year for him so far, he started to make things harder for himself. Like many others before him, Musk took to Twitter to air some views, and those views went down like the Space Shuttle Challenger. Where do we start? Forgive us our non-linear timeline. In terms of business and not so much public image, Musk delivered a blow to himself when in August 2018 he tweeted that he was going to take Tesla private. It was almost a done deal, except it wasn't, and Tesla stocks went all over the place. Musk was investigated. What was he up to? In one interview, he even said it could have been the drug Ambien that made him tweet that. One thing was for certain, the man was likely overworked. He seemed unstable. It wasn't that there wasn't a chance of his company going private, but it was far from a done deal. Cracks had been showing in Musk for a while, and perhaps this high-flying phoenix was heading downhill. But as we say, as far as public image goes, as far as gossip went, this transgression wasn't that bad. He'd done worse. Perhaps the nadir of his tweeting life, the one thing that singularly turned a god into a mere man, a man who was just as childish and prone to silly verbal spillages as any other man, was when he called a British cave diver a pedo. This wasn't just any cave diver. This was a man who was an integral part of rescuing 12 soccer players from a cave. A story that held the world's attention. A story that could have been said to be the biggest media event of the year. It was a get-your-tissues-out tale. It involved heroism, bravery, luck, the combined effort of countries that for a few days worked in unison. And Mr. Musk, he called one of the starring heroes a pedophile. Why? Who knows? The diver had no criminal record of such acts and was happily married to a Thai woman that was certainly no child. It looked like sour eggs, as the diver had told Musk that his Boring Company-made mini submarine was just an impractical device to help save the kids. The genius had become human, and a hot-tempered, puerile human at that. The world saver became belligerent after he was rebuffed because his device wasn't able to save 12 kids. In terms of his public image, Musk became a mini-monster overnight. Who was this guy? A well-intentioned genius or a cantankerous clown? Perhaps someone we didn't know after all. His story to some extent mirrored that of Dorian Gray. He apologized for his offensive remarks and then later said something much more offensive to BuzzFeed, who published his words. If there was a fiend behind the facade of Elon Musk, he certainly seemed real enough when he appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast in September 2018. But by coming out as just one of us, a regular guy taking a pull of Joe Rogan's joint, he also destroyed his own myth. His critics say taking some weed from the often badly behaved bro-like fighter comedian was bad for business. But we can't give Musk a hard time about that, seeing as drinking alcohol is a rite of passage in the USA. And statistically, undoubtedly, tried and testedly, it's more dangerous to people and society than cannabis is. Still, others said Musk only showed how unstable he had become. He didn't let up on the end of the world stuff, and Rogan was reverential throughout, not daring to ask any questions that didn't deflate the genius of Musk. Nonetheless, Musk had the courage to do the show. From the beginning, he has been a man that has walked the beat of his own drum. He has done things that will go down in history, and as we know, many geniuses, great artists, wise folks, and creative iconoclasts don't act like performing monkeys. They don't move like rats in a Skinner box. They upturn apple carts, and sometimes can be intemperate, confounding, contradicting. Maybe the public can't always have its own way, and Elon Musk wouldn't be the man he is if he wasn't sat there on the Greeks' Mount Olympus acting up and being outrageous at times. If he is not exactly favored in the hearts and minds of the public right now, perhaps he might also rise from the ashes. Elon Musk could probably use some better public speaking skills if he doesn't want the world to hate him.
Get ready for the ultimate billionaire bout. Elon Musk versus Mark Zuckerberg. Why do these two plutocrats hate each other? In this corner, we have the tech wonderkind, Mark Zuckerberg. While he was only in college, his idea for a dating website morphed into Facebook, and he and his partners launched the massive social media network and changed the internet forever. His network has grown to include image-sharing site Instagram, private message service Messenger, and international chat app WhatsApp. He's fallen into controversy for how his sites handle their user data, but it hasn't stopped him from becoming the 7th richest person in the world as of October 2021, with a net worth of $118 billion. And in the other corner, we have the entrepreneur and Tesla CEO Elon Musk. Known for his love of ambitious tech projects, he dominates the electric car market, founded the infrastructure company The Boring Company, and the private space travel company SpaceX, and is involved in brain interface research at Neuralink. He's known as much for his eccentric personality and his bizarre tweets as for his innovations, and he was once fined by the federal government for tweets that caused a stock fluctuation. But it hasn't stopped him from currently being the richest person in the world, with an October 2021 net worth of $202 billion. But why do they constantly seem ready to go to war? The two didn't intersect much, with Zuckerberg's interests being primarily in the digital sphere and Musk's more in physical technology. But in 2016, they were about to collide in a big way. SpaceX was about to pull off a major rocket launch, and it would be carrying an expensive payload, a $200 million satellite from Internet.org, backed by Zuckerberg. The telecommunications satellite would be launched into space by the rocket in one of the first major collaborations between the billionaires. But it would never get off the ground, literally. In September 2016, a major fire broke out on the rocket before it could launch, and the rocket was destroyed along with the satellite. It was a massive setback for SpaceX, but not the first after they had lost a rocket in a 2015 mishap. Musk was disappointed, but Zuckerberg was angry and took to Facebook to express his opinions. His language, the company was deeply disappointed that SpaceX's launch failure destroyed our rocket, left no doubt about who Zuckerberg was holding responsible, and the first shot in the feud had been fired. It would not be the last. The two only got more powerful after this confrontation, and soon it would be Zuckerberg's turn in the barrel. After the controversial 2016 presidential election, attention turned to just how much misinformation there was on Facebook. You've probably seen it. You're looking at pictures of your friend's vacation, and the next post is your aunt's second husband talking about how aspirin is actually mind control pills. But an investigation into the company's involvement in the election was brewing, and in 2018 it blew wide open. Cambridge Analytica was about to enter the chat. Turned out that the personal data of millions of Facebook users had been covertly collected by the British data firm. It's pretty easy to give away your data on Facebook. Remember all those quizzes about what Harry Potter character you'd be? They always ask you for some details about yourself, and that data gets funneled back to the company. But the scandal here wasn't just that the data had been collected without permission, it was where it went. Much of it was used to gear political advertising toward Facebook users, making it easier for campaigns and political action committees to misinform people about the candidates. The reaction was swift and angry. It's rare to see Republicans and Democrats agree on anything, but they both wanted Mark Zuckerberg in the dock before Congress. He was barraged with questions about what he knew and when. And while he claimed that there was no significant data breach, it was enough for politicians to call for the company to be broken up or placed under federal oversight. And it wasn't just in the US. Cambridge Analytica had been involved in advertising during the Brexit vote in the UK, and many politicians there wanted answers too. And the politicians weren't the only ones with strong opinions. 2 years ago, it had been Musk in the hot seat when Zuckerberg hit out at him. And Musk was now ready to strike back. Amid the scandal, the Tesla founder suddenly deleted all of his company's Facebook pages, no doubt breaking the hearts of Tesla fans worldwide. His explanation? The big tech company and its deep involvement in the user data gave him the willies. A typical blunt statement from the billionaire who once composed a rap song dedicated to the late gorilla Hammurabi. These were the big incidents, but the two couldn't seem to stop taking shots at each other. In the past, billionaires tended to be business magnates who kept to themselves and didn't speak to the common folks as much. But today's tech billionaires are as much as celebrities as businessmen. They're rarely shy about sharing their opinions. In the past, Musk has talked about how he believes that artificial intelligence is a threat to the human race, raising the prospect of an intelligence so strong we couldn't control it. But Zuckerberg had a more optimistic view and couldn't resist the chance to take a dig at his nemesis. During a Facebook livestream, he talked about how assuming the worst of artificial intelligence was irresponsible and stated that he was optimistic about the future. And of course, it didn't end there. Musk immediately took to Twitter the next day and accused Zuckerberg of having a limited understanding of AI, and the fight was on once again. The two would continue sniping at each other on and off, and old incidents would come up again. When Musk was asked about the failed rocket launch, the Tesla CEO commented that at least they gave him a free launch to make up for it, and implied that Zuckerberg was making too big a deal over the loss. After all, they probably had insurance. But in 2020, the feud would explode, and somehow, Borat was involved. The controversy over Facebook's data regulation continued into 2020. As the next presidential election loomed, many activists called for the company to be regulated or broken up, including the comedian Sacha Baron Cohen, who condemned it for letting anti-Semitism flourish on the platform due to a lack of moderation. What he wasn't expecting was for one of the world's richest men to leap in on his post and reply with the hashtag delete Facebook, it's lame. Maybe not the most profound statement, but Zuckerberg would only read it one way, a declaration of war. And soon, real-world events would escalate the feud once again. The presidential election was over, and soon Joe Biden would be certified as the winner. But a mob of protesters had other opinions. They stormed the Capitol building and killed a police officer to stop the certification vote, leading to arrests, injuries, and deaths. In the aftermath, the shocked nation looked for a cause, and many people pointed the finger at social media, which had allowed conspiracy theorists to spread rumors about the election being rigged for months before the vote. While much of the attention was focused on Twitter and its moderation, others thought Facebook was still a major culprit, and Musk was ready to once again throw fuel on the flames. He took to Twitter claiming that the Capitol rampage was part of a domino effect that all started when Zuckerberg created a website to rate women on the campus. While the popular domino internet meme might have not been the most effective way to make his point, Musk continued to comment on their data sharing and spying practices, as well as the greater integration on apps like Messenger and WhatsApp that meant Facebook would be getting more data even if people weren't on it. He even pointed people to the encrypted messaging app Signal as an alternative, and was retweeted by another Zuckerberg rival, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey. So why do these two dislike each other so much? It seems counterproductive for them to keep on sniping at each other. After all, they're not direct business rivals in many areas. While their interests can intersect, the sources of their fortunes are very different. And in the new economy, the wealth of these billionaires is largely dependent on one thing: the state of their stock holdings. Controversy makes their companies seem unstable, and that can lead people to sell stocks, something both are very familiar with, as controversy has seen their net worth fluctuate wildly, losing billions in a single day of trading. So why can't they seem to stay in their own lanes? One possible explanation is that they don't understand each other very well. The two come from different backgrounds. Musk is the scion of a wealthy South African family with roots in old money. Zuckerberg, meanwhile, didn't grow up poor but was certainly not expected to become a billionaire when he went off to Harvard. Musk's explosive, eccentric personality is not a good match for Zuckerberg's more restrained demeanor. It may be a version of that one person in your friend group that you just don't vibe with, just on a global scale. The other explanation is much more ambitious. There are only a few people on the planet who have more money than they know what to do with. Zuckerberg and Musk own so many companies that their wealth basically grows on its own. So they've turned their attention to changing the world, and that puts them into competition with each other. They're both chasing historic firsts, and when only a few people in the world can do the same thing as you, it's natural to see them as a rival and try to tear them down at every opportunity. But they're not the only people trying to pull them down. Another reason for their enmity might be because they want to make sure the heat is on the other guy. As two of the most visible billionaires, they've come under frequent fire from politicians angry about income inequality. While their 12-digit fortunes are enough to make people bang on the virtual gates with virtual pitchforks, their own scandals have raised ire as well. Controversy over Zuckerberg's data scandals and Musk's love for energy-consuming cryptocurrency have gotten them both in hot water. And if they can emphasize the other guy's problems, maybe Congress won't be looking at their own. But someone else might just stand to benefit from this feud. While Musk and Zuckerberg have been fighting it out in the background, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos has been emerging as possibly the most powerful billionaire in the world. His Amazon delivery service has become the go-to source for ordering just about everything. His streaming service is producing dozens of new series a year, and he started his own space travel company, Blue Origin, allowing tourists with deep pockets and even celebrities like William Shatner to make trips to the border of space. While he gets many of the same complaints about his massive wealth, just short of Musk's total as of October 2021, and there are persistent complaints about conditions at Amazon's workplaces, he doesn't seek out the headlines as much as Musk and Zuckerberg, and he's only getting richer while they fight. It might be time for the two long rivals to stop sniping and focus on a bigger threat like rival superheroes, or they could just keep insulting each other on Twitter. The world's richest man once spent $1 million on a car that couldn't drive. But that's just the tip of the iceberg for the insane ways Elon Musk spends his billions. One major expenditure for Musk was $100 million in residential property in California. Most of these homes were in the LA area, and at one time he owned 7 separate homes. His first piece of property was a Bel Air home that he'd been renting for 2 years, which he ended up buying for $17 million in 2012. It's a modest 20,248 square feet and has 7 bathrooms and a 2-story library with a pool and a tennis court in the backyard. The property also includes an on-site gym and expansive wine cellar. The property ended up being sold off in 2020 for $29 million, earning Musk a small profit. On the same street as his massive mansion, Musk also bought a more humble home for $6.75 million in October of 2013. Famous actor Gene Wilder lived there in the 2,756 square foot home for over 30 years, until leaving it in 2007. Musk didn't actually live at the home though, instead using the 3-bedroom home as a private schoolhouse for his children, which he described as a little schoolhouse on the prairie, except for in Bel Air on a golf course. After pledging to get rid of his properties though, Musk put the home on the market for $9.5 million in May 2020, but any buyers had to promise not to tear the home down or make any major modifications. It would end up going for $7 million to Elizabeth Hunter, who is married to Gene Wilder's nephew, and it's rumored that Musk himself lent the couple most of the money to buy it. Then in 2015 and 2016, Musk bought 3 more Bel Air mansions, a ranch home for $20 million, an unfinished mansion for $24.25 million, and another mansion for $4.3 million. But apparently he didn't spend any time there, as the neighbors told reporters that nobody was ever present on the property. On top of those 3 costly properties, Musk also bought another 2-story home for an estimated $4.2 million, also in Bel Air. He must really love the Fresh Prince. In 2020, all these properties worth about $62.2 million ended up being sold, yet again cutting Musk a tidy little profit. Hopping over to Brentwood, California, Musk bought a home with his ex-wife for $3.7 million in 2014, but it sold for $4 million in 2019. Musk's final home, though, is in San Francisco, and it's a 100-year-old 16,000 square foot mansion with 10 bedrooms, its own hiking trails, and a full-blown ballroom. Musk bought it for $23.4 million in 2017 and listed it for $35 million in 2020 as part of his pledge to dump all his properties and live more simply. Real estate may have been one of Musk's passions, but anyone who's ever driven a Tesla knows that the man absolutely loves cars. In 2013, Musk bought one of the Lotus Esprit cars used by James Bond in The Spy Who Loved Me. He paid almost $1 million for the car, though the car apparently cannot be physically driven. That's because this was the vehicle specially modified for filming the underwater scenes. Instead, it has a bank of 4 propellers in the rear of the vehicle and a watertight compartment with an electric motor to power them. It even has fins on the side which can be used to steer it while underwater. During filming, a former Navy SEAL actually drove the vehicle while wearing full scuba gear, as the car's interior is not watertight. Incredibly, the car that Musk paid $1 million for was accidentally discovered by a building contractor who had bought a storage unit for just $100 and found the dilapidated vehicle within. After discovering what it used to be, they carefully restored it, earning themselves an almost $1 million payday. Oh, and if the car looks familiar to you, and it should, because Musk admitted that it served to inspire his famous Cybertruck. Musk also acquired a Porsche 911, an original Ford Model T, a Jaguar E-Type Series 1 Roadster, an Audi Q7, a Hamann BMW M5, and a McLaren F1. Famously, Musk ended up completely totaling his F1 as he lost control of the 627 horsepower monster while driving a friend to a meeting. According to Musk, as the duo was driving, his friend asked him to really show him what the car could do, to which Musk replied, "Watch this." What his friend ended up witnessing was Musk punching the accelerator, completely losing control of the massively powerful vehicle, spinning out of control and smashing into an embankment. Miraculously, no one was injured, but the car was totaled. Prophetically, Musk said that he'd often heard about individuals becoming rich, buying fancy sports cars, and immediately wrecking them, but he was sure he'd never be that guy, so he didn't even bother to get the car insured. Ultimately, Musk took a $1 million wash as the F1 got junked. But if you're looking for outlandish expenses on rich people hobbies, prepare to be disappointed. Because by Musk's own admission, he doesn't have many hobbies. Instead, he prefers to read, play video games, and spend his time on Twitter. Admittedly, probably too much time. As far as lavish vacations, Musk doesn't seem to take many, famously doing an annual camping vacation with his children and barely taking a day off from work otherwise. Where Musk has spent most of his money has been with his 2 babies, SpaceX and Tesla. Musk stated his goal is to build a Mars city, a second home for humanity that can eventually be self-sustaining, and an insurance policy for life back here on Earth. In a bid to do just that, Musk has spent undisclosed millions of his own private wealth on keeping SpaceX funded and alive during its troubling first few years. He's since directed much of his efforts toward 2 major world-changing projects within SpaceX, Starship One and Starlink. Musk's reusable rockets have revolutionized spaceflight and made SpaceX the most successful private space company in the world. They've dramatically cut down the launch costs and sped up launch schedules. But if humanity is going to move the stars, even Musk's Falcon rockets aren't enough. Enter Starship, a rocket that's not just massive but truly reusable. This huge rocket, reminiscent of something from the 1950s science fiction, is even bigger than the Saturn V that took man to the moon. At the very top is the spaceship itself, capable of carrying up to 110 tons into orbit. The bottom is a super heavy rocket that will be able to launch the vehicle. Unlike other SpaceX rockets, though, the entire system is meant to be reusable, with the actual vehicle also capable of returning to Earth and landing like a jetliner. The scope of the Starship is incredibly ambitious, and to date, prototypes have successfully landed, but only after flying as high as 500 feet. The next major project Musk has personally spent millions funding is Starlink, a constellation network made up of hundreds of satellites. Starlink is meant to bring global internet access to the entire world. Currently, Starlink will cost you $500 to pre-order the hardware needed and has a monthly charge of $99 once the service goes live. While this may cost more than standard internet providers, Starlink differs in that just a few years' time, Musk vows you'll be able to use your Starlink service literally anywhere on the globe, providing a low-latency, high-speed internet connection across every square inch of planet Earth. Tesla is another cash cow for Musk, but for a long time it was a cash black hole. It's well known that in the early days, Musk was pouring much of his own money into the company, relying on friends for loans just to live day to day. How much he poured into the company is unknown, but we can say for certain that he's made a lot of profit on his initial investments. Musk has also redirected much of his personal wealth to the Boring Company and Neuralink. The Boring Company is committed to creating underground infrastructure that seeks to solve the problems of traffic congestion and connect cities with very high-speed railways. It's yet another moonshot from the person who may be the most ambitious man in the modern age, but it's also very likely to have a profound payoff in time. Right now, the company is still privately owned and largely working on developing its own tech, but it's already successfully built the Las Vegas Convention Center Loop, cutting down a walking trip from one end of the convention center campus that used to take 25 minutes to a 2-minute ride. Neuralink is focused on creating high-bandwidth connections between computers and the human brain, a technology that will absolutely revolutionize the world if successful. Musk has sunk $100 million into the company, and it's known that the Department of Defense is a major supporter and very interested in the technology the company is attempting to develop. On a more selfless note, some of Musk's biggest expenditures have actually been in the field of charity. In 2018, he'd given just under $100 million to various charities, and when he became the world's wealthiest man, he immediately began a philanthropic spending spree. Back in the fall of 2020, he took Feeding Texas, a charity committed to ending hunger in Texas, completely by surprise after responding to one of their tweets asking for COVID relief aid and giving them $100,000. Then, when winter storms hit Texas and took out its power infrastructure, the organization reached out, and this time Musk gave them an additional $1 million. According to the head of Feeding Texas, Celia Cole, it was a quick ask and a quick yes. Musk also pledged to give the city of Brownsville, Texas, $30 million after choosing it as a site for a SpaceX facility. The pledge came as a surprise to the mayor of the city, and while the donation hasn't been given yet, the mayor has put a team together on how to spend the money per Musk's request. The $30 million figure includes $20 million for education and $10 million for revitalizing the city's downtown area, which will hopefully bring in more visitors and business for locals. Musk has also given $5 million to Khan Academy, a platform for online courses, and another $5 million to 2 Boston researchers studying the coronavirus. He's also given an undisclosed amount to a fund meant to help bring internet access to the developing world. His biggest charitable expense, though, is a $100 million prize known as X Prize for a competition meant to discover solutions to capture and permanently lock away carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The competition is expected to last 4 years, with the best, most feasible technology presented, awarding its inventors $1/10 billion to kickstart their operation. Critics point out that so far Musk has given less than 1% of his wealth, but Musk has promised that that will change and that the world shouldn't expect his biggest charitable contributions until later in life. That's because his businesses are relatively new, and if he were to sell off Tesla or SpaceX stock to fund charitable giving in huge amounts right now, it would end up bankrupting both companies and losing many people their jobs. He's signed on to the Giving Pledge, an international agreement amongst the world's wealthiest individuals to give away most of their wealth before their deaths. When it comes to spending money, Musk is kind of a boring guy, preferring instead to invest money in creating more revolutionary technologies and companies than taking typical rich people vacations to faraway islands where hunting man is legal. Musk's continued reinvestment of his money into companies that could reshape human society may ensure his continued reign atop the throne of the world's richest man. And one day, given his pledge to give most of his wealth to charity, he could also take the crown of the most charitable man in history.
Forbes reports that in 2017 there was a record number of billionaires in the world, 2,043 to be exact. This number is quite small when we consider that there are over 13 million millionaires in the world, people that are sometimes referred to as high net worth individuals. Although it is unlikely that any of us will become billionaires, if you are a white American with a good education, reports suggest that you can have as high as a 1 in 5 chance of becoming a millionaire by the time you die, but billionaire? That's a bridge too far for most but the extremely fortunate. The psychological theory known as the happiness paradox tells us wealth might not even make us happy, but you can judge that for yourself after watching this episode of the infographic show, How is Life Different for Billionaires? Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell button so that you can be part of our notification squad. First of all, we can't exactly say how all billionaires live. We can, however, take a look at some billionaires and perhaps see if there are recurring traits for many of them. For instance, Bill Gates is said to live quite frugally even though he's the richest man on the planet, while Indian billionaire Mukesh Ambani bought a home which many people might say is the most lavish abode one could buy. His skyscraper, called Antilia, is 27 stories high and cost him around $1 billion. He's worth around $23 billion, give or take a few billion depending on which source you read. We used Forbes real-time rankings. Bill Gates is worth around $86 billion, and his Medina, Washington estate cost him just $63 million to build. While still lavish, this might give you an idea of how these billionaires have dissimilar lifestyles. Nonetheless, they both have huge houses, and no doubt their lives have many similarities because of their great wealth. But not all billionaires live in mansions, estates, or luxurious high-rises. In 2017, Forbes put Warren Buffett in the top 5 of richest people in the world at $75.6 billion. But he lives in a house in a small neighborhood of Omaha, Nebraska that he bought for $31,500 in 1958. That would be about $250,000 in today's money, although it's said his property is currently worth about $650,000. According to Realtor.com, that is only slightly more than their average 3.3 bedroom, 2.6 bathroom house listed on their site at the end of 2016. That cost was a little over $400,000. Talking about the house, Buffett said, "I'm happy there. I'd move if I thought I'd be happier someplace else. Still, the house is guarded and there are plenty of security cameras." Ingvar Kamprad, the Swedish founder of IKEA, is also not too fond on being extravagant. While his net worth has fallen sharply over the recent years, and he's now said to be worth just $6 billion, down many billions, he might not need the cash. While some people say he's stingy, others just say he doesn't enjoy living the lavish lifestyle. Business Insider wrote in 2016 that he lives in a one-story home, sometimes takes the bus, flies economy, and drives a decades-old Volvo. So it's not all glamour and decadence for our billionaires. But one thing is certain for most, many of them just don't go out in the street and walk around as we do. In fact, according to some sources, billionaires work their socks off and don't have very much free time. Co-founder of Google, Larry Page, said he would sometimes work around the clock, literally 24 hours a day. Elon Musk, the man behind Tesla and SpaceX, says you need to be putting in around 100 hours a week just to get ahead of the rest. In fact, if we look at what Elon Musk does on average, the man seems to be pretty busy. Not all billionaires are still at the forefront of their industry, but let's take a look at the average day in the life of Elon Musk. Fortunately, Musk has let this be known, so we can give you a rundown. He gets up at 7 a.m. after 6 hours of sleep. He often skips breakfast but never forgoes a shower. He divides his work between Tesla and SpaceX, which adds up to about 82 hours at work. He even sometimes puts in more hours on the weekend, but also enjoys spending time with his sons. He tries to never work on Sundays and instead travels or hangs out at his Bel Air mansion. He doesn't eat much but will sometimes go crazy during business meals. He also admitted to being kind of addicted to Diet Coke, something he isn't too proud of. He says he also finds time to go to the gym twice a week, and he says he is a passionate reader of novels and nonfiction books. But, like most billionaires, you won't find Musk just wandering around any old high street. In fact, according to an article in the British media, even London's multi-millionaires won't go out without a bodyguard, which apparently costs around $500 for one man for one day. Many of them travel by private helicopter and do not take public transport anywhere. Other media reported that Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg has around 16 bodyguards working shifts at his home in Silicon Valley. In fact, it's reported that his neighbors have even complained about all those guards illegally taking up parking spots in the neighborhood. In fact, way back in 2008, Forbes interviewed Russ Allen Prince, president of the private wealth research firm Prince & Associates, who told them that 98% of people with over just $25 million have spent money on special security services. This might be hiring Navy SEALs or even employing high-tech security robots that can take down home intruders. So, even with all that wealth, you could say a billionaire's life is somewhat made unhappy at times from fear of being a victim of robbery or kidnapping. Maybe they counter this by eating loads of amazing food. Well, not Warren Buffett, who famously said he lives on fast food and Coca-Cola. He's apparently been eating McDonald's for breakfast for many years, but being a big shareholder in the fast food company, maybe he's just advertising. Richard Branson once said he drinks 20 cups of tea a day, while Donald Trump also loves his junk food. But this surely is all talk for the media. Some of these people must eat well. In fact, many reports suggest a lot of the world's billionaires hire chefs, sometimes Michelin-starred. These might work in the house or even on a private yacht. Many billionaires own private yachts. The Sheikh of Dubai apparently owns a $350 million yacht. Chelsea soccer club owner Roman Abramovich owns a yacht called the Eclipse, which has an estimated value of $450 million to $1.2 billion. It even has a submarine attached to it. One of the world's most expensive yachts, with a value of $1 billion plus, doesn't seem to have an owner yet. That's called the Streets of Monaco. The most expensive yacht, the History Supreme, was commissioned by a Malaysian businessman for $4.8 billion. Apparently the yacht cost him around a third of his net worth.
He gets up in the morning when he feels like he's had enough sleep, so that means no alarms need to go off. He has a healthy breakfast and spends some quality time with the people in his home. His days are regularly taken up by meetings, but he hates it when they're crowded. When he returns home from work, he likes to eat unusual food for dinner, and he's always trying to help with washing the dishes. He then watches a bit of TV, Star Trek if it's on, and then he goes to bed at a reasonable time. Well, that doesn't sound very interesting for a billionaire, does it? We might also add that he spends around $1.6 million a year on security. When he's at work, his office is protected by $180,000 bulletproof panels. When he's not working, he likes to take the kids on the private jet or for an adventure in a submarine. This is, of course, not the life of a mere millionaire, it's the life of a billionaire, a famous one too.
The one and only Jeff Bezos, net worth $185.1 billion. At least it was how he lived a few years ago, according to various media stories. The day-to-day life of millionaires and billionaires can of course be vastly different, even when we're not talking about security and very expensive hobbies. How an ultra-rich tech CEO and a member of the royal family live are two very different worlds. A guy who made millions as a high-ranking member of a crime family will very likely have a different routine from some kid who was born a millionaire and spends most of his time posting photos on Instagram. Saying that, there are some commonalities in how the rich live, either the ultra-rich or just a bit rich. Let's start with a billionaire lifestyle. If you're one of the top billionaires, it's highly likely that you'll have hired a 24-hour-a-day security. That means at home, when you go to the office, and while you're at the office. When it comes to security, it seems out of the tech billionaires, it's Mark Zuckerberg, net worth $96.7 billion, who spends the most. Or at least Facebook spends the cash. The last numbers we can find said his security costs in the region of $23 million per year, but his private aircraft costs another $2.95 million. So personal freedom is one of the biggest differences between the ultra-rich and the mere millionaire types. Obviously, we can't tell you everything about their security because that would mean it sucked, but some things do make it into the press. There were rumors back in 2016 that Zuckerberg planned to build 4 new houses on his compound, except one of those houses was a gigantic panic room. As for when he's at work, it's said he has what the media called a Praetorian Guard around him at all times. If someone gets funny ideas about taking the CEO down with a rugby tackle, they won't even get close to him. If that's not excessive, it's said in a conference room he has an office protected with bulletproof glass. There's a panic button too. According to rumors, and we repeat, rumors, he has a panic chute too. Where it takes him, we can't say, if it exists at all. Like many billionaires, there's an armed guard outside his personal residence at all times. If he does go out in public, where he's going will be vetted and swept before he even steps foot in the place. Obviously, he doesn't go anywhere without his highly trained entourage. That doesn't sound like much fun at all. It's almost like being imprisoned by your wealth. But what about millionaires? Maybe they can say millionaires have more fun. We guess it all depends on how many millions you have. There are 1,000 million in 1 billion. So there's a big difference between having sold a few Bitcoin and got yourself 1.2 million and someone who has 836 million. It also depends on where you live, because a few million in some countries is a fortune, and it could mean the risk of someone kidnapping your kids and asking for a ransom. Still, not all rich millionaires have round-the-clock security. Take for instance the actors Keanu Reeves and Jake Gyllenhaal, guys who like to ride the subway. The former is said to have a net worth of around 350 million and the latter 80 million. Let's just add here that net worth for celebrities changes a lot depending on the resource you're looking at. As for billionaires, their net worth changes like the wind. So what we can say at the time of this writing might be very different from when you watch the show. Yeah, we've been reading your comments about us getting net worths wrong. Many actors, in fact, don't have any fancy security detail, especially when they're doing their day-to-day stuff. When Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were together, they had a bodyguard. Even so, they were once spotted riding on a scooter in Vietnam, not even wearing helmets. It's also said when in Asia they'd spend up to $20,000 a night on their luxurious lodgings. Many multimillionaires, you won't be surprised to hear, have personal chefs. Occasionally, those chefs kiss and tell, talking about who the fussy eaters are and what strange foods they like to eat. One personal chef said the job was fun and that he got to travel around on yachts, but he also said that he was on call all the time and generally worked 15-hour days. Another chef, who refused to say much about the people he worked with, said celebrities hardly ever leave the house. Like the billionaires, they're somewhat trapped by their status. That doesn't sound like much fun. Chef Kat Turner, who worked with a bunch of celebs, said her clients at times demanded the utmost privacy, meaning some celeb chefs have to be almost invisible. That, she said, makes the job a lonely one. It seems she at least had fun working with the Smashing Pumpkins frontman Billy Corgan with a net worth of $60 million. She said he ate simply, and most of the food she made for him was very healthy. She said she worked hard, but he also worked 12 hours a day, 6 or 7 days a week. What about your regular millionaires? Do they require bodyguards and personal chefs? A bodyguard from the UK was asked about that. He said it all depends on where you're working. A person with not many millions or even a solitary million might walk around with bodyguards in the poorest nations on earth. But in a place like England, he said you pass them in the supermarket every day and you wouldn't know that they were what he called part of the upper middle class. Consider that the average house price in West London is around $1.5 million, and being a millionaire in some of London's swanky suburbs isn't a big deal at all. There will be no personal chefs for the folks who can just call themselves a millionaire, no bodyguards, and certainly no super yacht. Just like in the US, they'll have more time than regular working folks to focus on personal growth, to enjoy hobbies, and to have time to talk in depth to their kids' teachers. They'll also strategize about what to do with their wealth. According to some experts, mere millionaires on the bottom rung of the ladder are actually very careful with their money. When 600 millionaires in the US were questioned in a survey, many of them said they spent below their means. Even though they had a big income, they weren't rich enough to go crazy with their cash. So being frugal was the way to go. Most of them didn't live in a house that was super costly in relation to their wage. There was no showing off going on. Most of them lived in a place they could comfortably afford. Many of them even managed to save around half of the pay they received each year. Put it this way, if you're a millionaire with a $250,000 a year salary, it's unlikely you'll be spending 20 grand a night on a hotel room. Nonetheless, in another survey of regular millionaires, most of the people interviewed said they didn't budget. They had enough cash to know that if they were sensible, everything was going to be okay. If you have $1 million in the bank, you don't really need to worry too much about buying a pair of Louis Vuitton shoes. Entrepreneurs who hit the millionaire mark apparently like to have side hustles. They start looking for new streams of income, and why not? They have a safety blanket. The problem with being poor or even middle class is not having enough time to get out of your situation because you're working so hard. If lower millionaires are not working on their ideas, they will likely be investing their cash in index funds or in the property market. When they're not doing that, millionaires on average spend more time exercising than the poor, or doing yoga, or going to steam baths, or taking archery lessons, or just reading books. This is how one person put it when talking to Business Insider. Successful individuals are keenly aware of how they spend their resources, including their emotional and cognitive resources. Precious time. Such a valuable resource, and the working poor often doesn't get enough of it to focus on their personal development. So with the lower end of the millionaire ladder, safety and comfort and personal development are the big luxuries. And just to give you guys some hope, in some of the surveys we read, many of the millionaires didn't do exceptionally well in school or college, and quite a few didn't even finish high school. Now, let's get back to the very rich. Okay, so not all multi-millionaires are careful with their cash. After all, they rarely have to be. It's not easy to fritter away many millions of dollars. Some have tried hard, though. Take, for instance, the movie star Johnny Depp. Reports surfaced not long ago that he was spending in the region of $30,000 a month on just wine. It's also reported that he bought a town in France that cost him $75 million. Before that acquisition, he bought a chain of islands in the Bahamas for $3.6 million. He even spent $3 million in 2005 on his friend's funeral, gonzo journalist Hunter S. Thompson. That was according to a lawsuit. Depp's lawyer argued that he only spent $2 million on blasting Thompson's ashes from a cannon. According to an article in CNBC, when he was raking in the cash, his lifestyle alone cost him $2 million a month. It's thought he's worth around $200 million now, but you could triple that not too long ago. When that lawsuit was brought against him, his monthly costs were made public, so that's how we know so much. On top of his expensive wine habit, he also spent $300,000 a month on his 40 employees. What they all did, we don't exactly know, but we're guessing Mr. Depp, unlike Mr. Bezos, didn't get dry skin from all the dishwashing he was doing. Depp spent another $150,000 a month on security and his family, and a further $200,000 a month for his private jet. In conclusion, if you want to get rid of a fortune, ask Johnny Depp. But here's the real-life story of Brewster's Millions. Wasting tons of cash is easily done, especially if you have a devil-may-care attitude such as Depp, or if you were brought up poor and never really learned how to handle cash. That happened to a 19-year-old in England after he won the lottery in 2002. His windfall was almost £10 million, which in today's money, in dollars, is about $21 million. Needless to say, he quit his job as a garbage man, a bin man, as they say in England. This teenager, who learned to read and write in prison, was turned down for a private bank account because of his colorful criminal record. He gave lots of money away to family and friends, made some bad investments, and even paid a ton of cash to fight a celebrity on TV. He was arrested not long after for being caught firing steel balls at store windows from his Mercedes-Benz. Just 5 years after the win, and a lot of houses, cars, and drugs later, he was pretty much broke. In 2010, he was back to working collecting people's garbage and said he was happier doing that. So these are just two examples of how people threw away their fortunes. It's not something you hear billionaires doing often. Okay, so we always hear about Bezos getting his hands dirty and how Warren Buffett religiously eats hamburgers, ice cream, and Coke. But isn't that just to make us ordinary folks think they're just like us? How do they really live? Let's look at the Russian billionaire named Roman Abramovich, net worth $14.5 billion. As we write this, the media is talking about the yacht he bought for $610 million. Just the upkeep and running of this yacht costs him $65 million a year. Many billionaires own yachts. One of them, whose name was withheld, was asked why. This was his reply: "You're going to think I'm crazy. I'll tell you why. It's because I'm OCD about toilets and germs. If I rented a yacht, I would be sharing a toilet with people that I don't know, so I purchased my own." Unlike lower millionaires, they can make the world fit to their whims. Abramovich is the owner of a Premier Division soccer team in England, too. That's another thing billionaires like to do: buy sports teams. In the aforementioned division, teams have belonged to Chinese billionaires, Thai billionaires, and billionaires from the Middle East. We're not sure about all of them, but for some, including Abramovich, watching their team play might be one of their pastimes. Not all billionaires have fancy cars, but that's because most of them don't drive around in their own cars. Elon Musk, with a net worth of $166.1 billion, has a collection of cars, including his own Teslas. But billionaires are generally not into showing off. It's more likely that millionaires will be the ones buying top-of-the-range Rolls-Royces and Bugattis. Billionaires are happier in submarines doing some kind of deep-water expedition. Do they walk around the house in the most expensive garments? Possibly, if they're royal, but it's unlikely if they're self-made rich folks. Look at Elon Musk on his 2 times on the Joe Rogan podcast. As we write this, he's the richest man in the world, but on that show he looked like he just finished a shift at Taco Bell. He also mixed the ice in his whiskey with his fingers. Billionaires don't have to act like they're rich. They've peaked already. Instead, they play their own wealth down, and this is how one writer and a friend of a billionaire put it: "When meeting with my billionaire friend in his home, he wears Nike flip-flops, worn-out jeans, and t-shirts. Once he even came downstairs to meet me featuring a fresh ketchup stain on his shirt. That doesn't mean to say on the wall of their houses they don't have incredibly expensive paintings. Next time you go around to Bill Gates' house for dinner, ask him where he hangs his $36 million painting lost on the Grand Banks. In fact, ask to see his entire collection is worth many more millions. It's said business magnate David Geffen has an art collection worth $2 billion. So don't be fooled by all the flip-flops. We're guessing no billionaires in the world hold back on luxuries all the time. Still, as one friend of a billionaire put it, they're so rich they value the normal stuff. Unlike some millionaires who hire expensive high-end chefs to cook for them, some of the ultra-rich get off on cooking as a family. That's exactly why Mr. Bezos scrapes dried macaroni off the dishes, even if they are dishes made by Versace. Canada has long been haunted by the mysterious murder of billionaire Barry Sherman. Some argue the Toronto police were overwhelmed or stretched too thin. There were dozens of homicides they needed to solve, and a serial killer to stop before he killed again. It is possible under these circumstances that corners were cut and evidence overlooked or missing. This is certainly the opinion of Sherman's family's private investigation team. Police error may have cheated the victims of justice and the family from a sense of closure. Let's see who could have murdered Barry Sherman and his wife, and why, in this episode of the Infographic Show. The mystery of the murder of billionaire Barry Sherman. 50 Old Colony Road in Toronto, Canada is now the scene of a crime. But once not so long ago, it was just another home. Though, to be fair, it was far from your average type of house. Rather, it was a 5-bedroom, 9-bathroom mansion of concrete and steel, sprawled out over more than 12,000 square feet. It had an indoor and outdoor hot tubs and pools, a sauna and tennis court, an outdoor kitchen area, and an underground 6-car parking lot. The Shermans had spent 20 years as residents of Old Colony Road. However, by 2017, they had decided to move closer to the city, in an elite neighborhood. They purchased new property in Forest Hill and demolished its original house. Honey Sherman then began to plan the custom-designed home of her dreams to take its place. On December 13, 2017, the Shermans met with architects to discuss these plans. When the meeting ended, Honey left, but Barry stayed behind for 2 more hours. Estimates are that while Honey made it home by 7, Barry arrived closer to 9. Whatever time it was that they made it inside, they would never make it out alive again. 2 days later, on December 15th, a real estate agent stopped by. With him were wealthy clients interested in buying the $6.7 million Sherman home. They began a tour of the property, starting on the main floor and then making their way upstairs. They then headed back down, but before they left, they stopped briefly at the basement area pool. The pool wasn't really a point of interest, so they didn't stick around for long. But everyone was puzzled by what appeared to be bodies sitting by its steps. The real estate agent later explained that he didn't understand what he really saw. He thought it was some kind of strange rich person joke or something left over from Halloween. He never, in a million years, thought that he had stumbled across real bodies or was one of the first at a crime scene. It wasn't until later, after they left, that someone dialed 911. Both Barry and Honey were half-seated with belts around their necks. They were partially suspended as the other end of the belts were attached to a 3.5-foot pool rail. Both were fully clothed with their backs toward the pool. Their winter coats had been pulled from their shoulders to hold their arms in place behind them. Honey, an athletic 70-year-old with a signature blonde bob, appeared to have been hit and was slumped to one side. Oddly, Barry, who was 75 and heavy-set with graying hair and glasses, was positioned with his legs stretched out in front and crossed at the ankles. Word of the couple's death spread quickly in Canada and beyond. The Shermans had been married 40 years and had made a large impact not only in Canada, but around the world during this time. Barry's fortune amounted to $3.6 billion, but it was not their wealth that set the Shermans apart. It was their generosity with their money and their support for countless charities and other well-intentioned organizations. For these reasons and more, what took place next was an injustice for both the victims as well as their friends and family. The police who saw the bodies misread several obvious clues, and without taking into account either the character or histories of those involved, came to a quick, inaccurate, and outrageous conclusion. In a speech to reporters outside the home, they said that there were no signs of forced entry. They then added that they were not actively looking for any suspects. To those who know anything about murder investigations, this disclosure meant just one thing. The next day, the media, based on the police's report, began reporting the crime as a murder-suicide. They alleged that Honey had been killed by her husband Barry before he then killed himself. The couple's 4 children were enraged, with good reason. Still mourning their loss, they now found it necessary to release a statement defending the characters of their parents. Even those who didn't particularly like Barry agreed that the thought of him as a murderer was absurd. For one, the couple got along well, and Barry had never before in his life been violent. He was also not in the best physical shape and had limited strength. It was Honey who was athletic and by comparison much stronger. Some friends pointed out with rather dark humor that if it was a murder-suicide, Barry would not have been the aggressor, but more likely the victim. Having lost faith in the police, the Sherman children took action. They hired their own set of private investigators and paid another pathologist for a second autopsy. All came to the conclusion that the police had failed to notice several things. This included something as incredible as impressions of ties left on Barry's and Honey's wrists, indicating that they both, not just Honey, had been restrained. In addition to this, experts found other clues to prove Barry's innocence. The length of belt Barry was hanging from prevented him from getting the leverage necessary to have killed himself. He also had not moved around violently, as those trying to hang themselves would do. Unlike Barry, victims of suicide are not typically found with their glasses still on straight or their legs folded neatly in front of them. Eventually, the police agreed, but it took them over a month to change their opinion. Reports at this time reflected this change and began to report the crime as a targeted double homicide. As the police investigation went on, the Sherman children, for obvious reasons, continued with their own at the same time. It was not long before their private investigators found yet further task force shortcomings. They had not vacuumed around the bodies to collect fibers or hairs that the assailant may have left behind. They did not fingerprint anyone present in the house at the time to help identify a possible culprit. They even failed to examine the home for a point of entry beyond an absence of broken locks or windows. There were as many as 9 ways to enter, as well as a lockbox with a key left outside for the real estate agent. Then there were the dozens of apparently unnoticed palm and fingerprints left at the scene. With so much forensic evidence overlooked or lost, the case dragged on and eventually grew cold. By fall of the year that followed, only one officer was still investigating it full-time. It didn't help that though 2017 had been a bit crazy, 2018 was crazier still. There were a record number of homicides that year, and the officer's attention had by necessity turned elsewhere. Many looked to motive in an attempt to make headway with the case. But just who would want to kill Barry and his wife? As previously mentioned, both were generous participants in society and gave multiple millions to various organizations and charities. However, they were not without their enemies. In fact, Barry, an aggressive businessman in the pharmaceutical field, had many. Barry made his fortune in the genetic drug business, but his career started out small. He first worked for Empire Laboratories, a company owned by his uncle, as a driver during his summers. He was finishing his PhD in engineering when his uncle later died. He then bought Empire Laboratories and ran it for a few years before he sold it to a buyer. The money from the sale was used to create Apotex, a business of his own. Through hard work and determination, Barry turned it into a lucrative multi-billion-dollar company, and in the process earned himself a fortune. He had 10,000 employees who many said he treated more like family than staff. In fact, he would cut checks out to a total of millions for those who came to him with their problems. But that's pretty much where the good feelings surrounding his company end. Unfortunately, by nature of his business, providing cheaper alternatives
executives to name brands had made him several ambitious and well-funded enemies. The drug companies whose medications Barry copied lost billions as he sold knockoffs based on theirs. Needless to say, they did not take this well, and occasionally things got ugly. Bayer AG, for example, at one point believed that Apotex was in violation of its protective patents. It's alleged that those working on behalf of the Bayer company tried to get Apotex employees to reveal inside information. There were even accusations that Bayer had considered planting some drugs in Barry's car. Unsurprisingly, true or not, the company claimed to have no knowledge of any of this. Barry had quite a few questionable connections from other business dealings as well. An example of this was an investment he had made in a conman's chartering company that it turned out had no yachts. Another was a nutritional supplement that he had backed that was thought up and pitched by a two-time felon. Then there was an online trivia game that led to Barry pressing charges when his investments went missing. Overall, Barry was quite open-minded and gave support to those who most others wouldn't. Whether this was actually a good thing or not is still a source of debate. His friends believe that by seeing the good in sketchy people, he may have also unnecessarily put himself in danger. All the same, while he could be trusting and kind, Barry could be shrewd and spiteful as well. While he was often in court fighting for the rights to create drugs, he also fought for things that were unnecessary and even unethical. For example, he battled a hematologist in court who rightly questioned the safety of an Apotex medication. In the process, Barry involved her school, and she lost her position as a clinical program director at the university. However, in a rather hollow victory, she won the case. Aside from tumultuous business relations, there was bad blood in Barry's family as well, specifically in the case of his uncle's children. As he had been known to do, he had been providing checks to help out more than one. However, they wanted more, possibly because he had at least one nephew and niece addicted to drugs. They joined in a suit against him, alleging that because he created Apotex with money from their father's company, that they were owed some of its profits. Litigation drew out for a decade before they finally lost. Animosity and resentment only grew once a verdict was reached. After all, the nephews and nieces had been ordered to pay Barry's legal expenses. Very soon after this, the Shermans were strangled in their home. Was this merely a coincidence, or could his own family have killed him for revenge? Whether they did or not, they will continue to suffer the consequences of their betrayal. Barry's lawyers filed an appeal requesting they pay more money than what they already owed, the same day he was buried. While there's a lot of speculation about just who killed Barry and his wife, there's even more about what will happen following their death. Currently, Barry's wills are sealed by the order of the Ontario Superior Court. In the interests of protecting their beneficiaries, their contents will remain undisclosed for 2 years. No one, including the Sherman estate lawyer, knows the specifics of what either contains. Shockingly, it is possible that Honey never made a will. No one was asked to hold one on her behalf, and nothing turned up during a property search. This complicates matters somewhat, as order of death is important. One possibility is that they were killed together, or in legal terms, that they died simultaneously. Or when Honey returned home before her husband, that she was killed first. Then again, there is no way to prove that Barry was not the first one strangled. Reports claim that the exact time of death cannot be determined, and therefore, it will remain a mystery if one outlived the other. If Honey was the first to die, Barry's will could divide the estate between their kids. However, on the event that Barry died before his wife, his estate could be left to her. If she was then killed without a will of her own, who knows what this would mean? But whatever does happen, it's bound to get nasty. Sources allege someone has already stepped forward not long after Honey's death, saying she was promised them money. Though Barry and Honey were generous with money, Barry, and by extension his wife, also had many well-known enemies.
It's one of the wealthiest families in the world and the most tragic. Reminiscent of some ancient Mesopotamian curse, tragedy has struck the Getty family generation after generation, leading many to wonder if the rumors about a cursed bloodline are true, or if perhaps this of most wealthy families really did make a deal with the devil, who's been collecting his dues for over 100 years. It all starts with George Getty, grandson of an immigrant peasant. George would be forced to start working at a very young age, when his father died unexpectedly in 1861. With a helping hand from an uncle, young George was able to put himself through school, earning a Bachelor of Science from Ohio Northern University. Shortly after, George married and put himself through law school. Sadly, tragedy would soon strike for the first time in the Getty family when George's first child died from typhoid. 2 years later, he'd have his second child and heir, J. Paul Getty. In 1904, George moved the family to Oklahoma, giving up the law to become an oil man. In short order, he'd made several $1 million and moved the family to Los Angeles. In 1913, J. Paul Getty would get his chance to shine as he received a small loan from his father at age 21 to use for investing in oil wells. In just 2 years, J. Paul had mirrored his father's success, making his first $1 million. J. Paul, however, was not quite his father's son. Where George had been a disciplined businessman, J. Paul had grown up spoiled, and as an adult became a playboy. He was famous for his partying lifestyle, amassing a total of 5 failed marriages and 4 children. Nonetheless, success followed the Gettys, though George refused to leave J. Paul with full control over the family oil company. George would die in 1930 and leave controlling interest in the family firm to his wife rather than his son. By now, the company was worth up to $230 million in 1930s money, and the decision left J. Paul rather sore with his recently deceased father. Despite his playboy lifestyle that saw him pit lovers and mistresses against each other for his entertainment, J. Paul helped grow the family business. During the Depression, he used the family's vast wealth to snatch up failing oil companies, betting on a future economic rebound. When that rebound came, Getty Oil Company was challenging the most powerful oil companies in the world. Getty Oil had been late to stake claims in the lucrative oil fields of the Middle East. However, J. Paul would get a chance to reverse those fortunes when in 1948 he won a 60-year concession to drill in Saudi Arabia. J. Paul's son, George II, would be put in charge of the endeavor to find oil in the Saudi desert, and in 1953 George II struck black gold, exponentially growing the family's fortune. By 1957, J. Paul Getty was believed to be a billionaire, with an estimated net worth of $700 million to $1 billion. Now too famous to roam from hotel to hotel, as was his preferred lifestyle, J. Paul bought the Sutton Place estate outside of London and turned it into a party villa, despite his 65 years of age. Yet fortune was about to turn for the Getty family. They'd still be rich, but they'd suffer heartbreaking tragedy lasting to the still living generations. J. Paul Getty might have been a brilliant businessman, but he was a terrible father. A philanderer, J. Paul didn't bother to hide the fact that he was cheating while married and treated his children with sarcasm and disdain. This poor parenting would lead directly to the personal tragedies his own children would suffer. J. Paul Getty Jr., or just Jr. from here on out, seemed at first to overcome his father's poor parenting and hereditary vices. He married a longtime girlfriend in 1956 and had 4 kids, then moved to Italy and was being groomed to become an heir to Getty Oil and run its European division. However, philandering may have been in the Getty blood, as in 1964, Jr. divorced his wife and started shacking up with Talitha Pohl, an infamous philanderer herself. Talitha's influence on Jr. was stark as she introduced the once promising career man to the popular bohemian lifestyle of the 60s. Delving deeply into sex, drugs, and rock and roll, Jr. developed a fierce drug addiction. The happy, drug-fueled couple produced a son which they named, and we're not making this up, Tara Gabriel Gramophone Galaxy Getty. And that's the story of why you don't do drugs. Shortly after birth, Talitha pulled a J. Paul Getty on J. Paul Getty Jr. and left him, moving to London and taking on multiple lovers. Jr. eventually convinced Talitha to come back to him, and the couple lived happily ever after, until Talitha died of a heroin overdose just a few short years later. George Franklin Getty II, J. Paul Getty's oldest son, was by far the most successful of J. Paul's sons, working as executive vice president at Getty Oil and as director at Bank of America and Douglas Aircraft. Despite these stunning accomplishments, J. Paul never once praised his eldest son, and instead continued the same disdain and sarcasm that was signature to his relationship with his children when they were young. J. Paul would routinely send George Franklin personal memos that were sarcastic and highly critical, serving only to remind him that his overbearing father was always watching and always critical. Falling into a deep depression, George Franklin came home from work one day and retrieved a shotgun, firing it into the air. Alarmed, his second wife came rushing to find out what was going on, only for George Franklin to stab himself in the chest with a barbecue knife. With police on the way, he locked himself in a room where he ingested a bottle of pills. He'd be dead less than 24 hours later. J. Paul III, J. Paul Getty's grandson, took after his father, J. Paul Getty Jr., and dived headfirst into the world of drugs and rock and roll. Garnering the attention of a criminal outfit, J. Paul III got himself kidnapped, though at first the family thought it was just a hoax that J. Paul III put on himself in order to get more family money. Soon it became apparent that the kidnapping was no hoax, and the gang asked for $17 million in ransom. J. Paul, however, refused to pay the ransom, and it wasn't until the gang cut off one of J. Paul III's ears that he finally agreed to a ransom of 1/8 the original figure. He then sent the bill with interest to his son J. Paul Jr. for the ransom amount. Having learned literally nothing, J. Paul III went straight back to sex, drugs, and rock and roll, only to suffer a massive stroke in 1981 due to a dangerous mix of drugs and alcohol. This would confine him to a wheelchair for the rest of his life, finally dying at the age of 54. In the years that followed, J. Paul Getty would die, leading to fierce interfamily fighting over the fortune he had left behind. Or at least what he had actually left to his children, as most of his fortune was instead left to the Getty Center in Los Angeles, one of the world's premier art installations. Gordon Getty, another of J. Paul's sons, became a beloved figure in San Francisco for his charitable giving. Compared to the rest of the family, Gordon was a respectable man, until in 1999 it was discovered that he had an entire second and very secret family living in Los Angeles. The last member of the Getty family, or at least the latest member to suffer from the Getty curse, would be J. Paul's grandson Andrew Getty. He'd be discovered dead in his Beverly Hills home in 2015, naked from the waist down and surrounded by a pool of blood. The Los Angeles County coroner ruled the cause of death was heart disease and heavy drug use. We're guessing that the heart disease Andrew Getty had was an exploding heart, as there are few other ways to account for the blood pool that Andrew was found in. Seeing as the Getty family's private investigators had beaten the cops to the scene, though, we suspect that the real cause of death was not drug abuse or an exploding heart, but something more sinister. However, rich people are above the law, and despite their many ups and downs, the Gettys are still very much rich. The world now waits with bated breath for the Getty curse to strike again, though in hindsight we're pretty sure that the only curse that haunts the Getty family is one of excess, horrible parenting, and terrible life decisions. The Gettys have en masse made such terrible life decisions that calling their tragic deaths a curse is equivalent to running headfirst into oncoming traffic and calling it a tragic, unavoidable pedestrian accident. What does it take to become a billionaire? Some have done it with social media, online shopping, and electric cars. But there are a lot more billionaires you definitely haven't heard of, and you won't believe how they made their fortunes. Giovanni Ferrero is an unlikely candidate for the richest man in Italy, and he picked up that title when his brother passed away in 2011. He's become the sole heir to Ferrero S.p.A., a multinational chocolate and confectionery company. It's best known for those little wrapped Ferrero Rocher balls, a flaky candy filled with bits of hazelnut that your aunt probably gave you when she came back from Europe. So how does it translate into a net worth of $35 billion? Ferrero makes another product that's not as associated with it, the chocolate and hazelnut spread Nutella, a favorite around the world. And that's a lot of nuts and a lot of dough. You've definitely not heard of the next billionaire on our list, especially if you don't live in India. Gautam Adani isn't just one of the richest men in Asia with a net worth of $93 billion. He's one of the few on this list who didn't inherit his wealth. His father was a textile merchant, he dropped out of school, and went to work for his brother in the plastics unit. That gave him connections to the export-import industry, and he founded the Adani Group in 1988. It's now a multinational corporation that designs ports around the world and has holdings in energy, agriculture, and aerospace. He's the majority owner of India's second-largest airport and was even the subject of a kidnap ransom plot in 1998. Another one of our self-made billionaires made their fortune off what might be the cheapest but most important thing on Earth. It might be surprising, but Zhang Shanshan made his fortune by innovating the bottled water market in China. While he has pharmaceutical holdings, his biggest money stream is beverages. In China, distilled water was the most common choice, so he made a risky move when he stopped removing natural minerals from his bottled water. This led Nongfu Spring to become one of the world's largest beverage companies, even beating out soda powerhouses in the Asian nation. The notoriously reclusive Zhang saw his net worth skyrocket to over $60 billion when the company went public in 2020, making him the richest man in China. Sometimes you don't even need to innovate to become a billionaire. All it takes is being in the right place at the right time. For Robin Zhang, it was all about picking the right thing to manufacture. The Chinese billionaire founded Amperex Technology Limited in 1999 as a battery manufacturer, but he soon focused the company on the lithium-ion batteries that became common in many smart items. Demand increased, especially once they became used to power Tesla Roadsters. Zhang sold the company to a Japanese corporation, but spun off the lithium-ion battery production into a new company, and it took off like wildfire, giving him a net worth of just under $50 billion. You probably know what this next man did, even if you don't know his name. Zhang Yiming might be the closest thing China has to a Mark Zuckerberg or a Jeff Bezos, the founder of some of the internet's most popular sites. His company ByteDance included the news aggregator Toutiao and a video sharing platform known as Musical.ly. But the latter rebranded, and that's when it took off as the viral video juggernaut known as TikTok. Powered by a billion dances and cat videos, Zhang Yiming became a controversial figure around the world, as well as one of the richest, with a net worth of $44 billion even as he planned to step down as CEO. From wood to wealth, that's the story of this next man. Francois Pinault had humble beginnings, as the Frenchman was born in the countryside and worked for his family's timber company. After time in the military, he took over the family business and founded a wood trading company. He then made some savvy investments in bankrupt companies, switching his focus to retail and luxury goods, and founded the conglomerates Kering and Artemis. Heading back to China, few things are more powerful than communication. Ma Huateng runs Tencent, Asia's most valuable company. It's not hard to see why. The tech powerhouse is all over the map. He has holdings in investments, gaming, and entertainment around the world. But his biggest asset is in the instant messaging service WeChat, which lets people from across China reach each other in seconds. With many Western messaging sites banned in the country, WeChat is critical and briefly made Ma Huateng one of the 10 richest men in the world. He's fallen out of that list, but his net worth of $46 billion still makes him a force to be reckoned with in the billionaire world, one that consistently avoids the spotlight. Other billionaires made their fortune by providing something more vital than entertainment. Why does everyone love Aldi so much? The discount German grocery store is known for its no-frills surface, including making you put a quarter in to rent a shopping cart. Checkout lines are long, the stores are small, and the prices stay low, and that's turned the company into a massive powerhouse. The current managers of the family trust, siblings Kark Albrecht and Beatty Heister, have kept their father's business going strong and currently have net worths of over $14 billion each. That's a ton of canned goods. And they're not the only Teutonic titans on the list. Kuehne and Nagel International has been a powerful transport and logistics company based in Switzerland for over 100 years, and it's evolved from a freight shipping company to one with holdings around the world. It handles transport for major companies by land and sea on multiple continents and runs mass events like the Rugby League World Cup. And at the helm is Klaus Michael Kuehne, the third-generation majority owner who has aggressively expanded the company. It's paid off, giving him a net worth of $36 billion, making him the richest man in Germany. When people need something, supplying it is a great way to get rich. If you need glasses in Italy, really, there's only one name on most people's lips: Luxottica. You might not have heard their name, but the odds are you've bought their goods, because they own all of LensCrafters, Sunglass Hut, Pearl Vision, Target Optical, and Glasses.com. Their founder and chairman, Leonardo Del Vecchio, has largely cornered the glasses and frames market around the world, and neither he nor the company is flashy about it. With a net worth of $26 billion, he's the second richest man in Italy, and very happy to let you wear his goods without making him a household name. Our next billionaire shows that there's no age limit to becoming a successful businessman. In Hong Kong, there's one man who rises above them all: Li Shaoqi, a powerful real estate magnate and philanthropist. He manages hotels and restaurants around the Chinese region. He was briefly the fourth wealthiest person in the world in 1997, and then his empire was upended as China took over the former British holding. That meant a new way of doing business and a new bureaucracy to contend with. Li Shaoqi persevered and currently has a net worth of $33 billion. He retired from an active role in his company in 2019. About time, since he had just turned 91 years old. Jumping over from Asia to the Americas, we discover another influential billionaire, David Thompson, 3rd Baron Thompson of Fleet. It's a mouthful, and the Canadian media magnate inherited a powerful empire from his father in 2006. Though there was some controversy upon his ascension to the role, he proved himself in a big way when he acquired the international media company Reuters and merged it with the Thompson Company. While he's not a household name, he is known for his love of art and has taken advantage of his net worth of $45 billion, the largest in Canada, to build an underground art gallery at his home. Nobody truly knows the value of his collection, but we do know that he has a tendency to pay a lot of money for art. He purchased his most expensive piece, The Massacre of the Innocents, at a price of $76.7 million. In some cases, these billionaires had to work much harder to make it onto the list. Len Blavatnik had humble beginnings, growing up in Soviet Ukraine and immigrating as a college student. He started anew halfway across the world, earned a business degree at Harvard, and founded Access Industries in 1986. When the Soviet Union fell, he saw an opportunity and jumped back into the Eastern Bloc. He took advantage of the vacuum and now runs a massive company including investments in oil, coal, chemicals, plastic, media, and real estate. He's the richest man in the UK with a net worth of almost $40 billion, but he's most known for his charitable giving. He pays it forward so much he was even given a knighthood in 2017. Sometimes a lesser-known name runs an icon. Everyone knows the Chanel brand, especially its controversial founder Coco Chanel. She's been dead for 50 years, but she had a co-founder, a man named Pierre Wertheimer. The Wertheimers have been quietly running the luxury fashion and watch company ever since. Alan and Gerard Wertheimer are currently the controlling shareholders. Alan handles fashion, Gerard handles watches. and the unassuming brothers have a net worth of over $30 billion. They don't get too many headlines unless it's in equestrian digests. You've definitely seen ads for this next guy's company, but unless you're a big football fan, you don't know the name behind the ads. Dan Gilbert went to law school but worked part-time at his parents' real estate agency. That short-term job turned out to be a worthy investment because Gilbert went on to fund one of the first online direct mortgage lender companies, Rock Financial. It was bought by a software company in 2000 and named Quicken Loans. He bought it back only 2 years later with a group of investors and remains its chairman to this day, with a net worth of $37 billion. But sports fans might know him better as the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are worth upwards of $1.5 billion. Everyone knows this next company, but its founder is a little quieter. Nike. It's the name in sports attire, and everyone recognizes the famous swoosh. Co-founder Phil Knight helped build it from a small company to an empire, and it's paid off by making him one of the few people with a net worth of over $50 billion. After founding the company with his former college track coach, he's become well known for his massive philanthropic contributions to his alma maters, as well as for owning the animated film company Laika. If you like movies like Coraline or The Box Trolls, they're brought to you by Nike. Going back to the other side of the globe, we gotta ask, who is the richest man in Asia? That would be Mukesh Ambani, an Indian businessman who got his start working in his father's spice and agriculture business. That business grew into a diversified corporation, Reliance Industries Limited, and gained holdings in refining, petrochemicals, and media. It only grew from there, and Ambani took over following his father's death in 2002. He's built the fortune massively since, introducing a smartphone brand and purchasing one of India's most popular cricket teams. The end result? A net worth that tops $100 billion. Sometimes it doesn't take that long to get to the top. You just need to be lucky and time it right. Sam Bankman-Fried was born in 1992 when many of his companies on the Billionaires list were already at the top of his game. He had a normal upbringing, being raised by 2 law professors, but he gained an interest that would send him on a wild ride: cryptocurrency. He's now the founder and CEO of the cryptocurrency exchange FTX, running it out of the Bahamas. His net worth of $26 billion makes him the richest person in their 20s, and he's known for giving 1% of all the company's revenue to charity. But as volatile as crypto can be, people will wonder how long he'll stay on top. Who's the richest woman in the world? Everyone knew Liliane Bettencourt, the French heiress and businesswoman who was one of the leading shareholders of L'Oreal. But the cosmetics magnate died in 2017, and the title of world's richest woman was passed on to her daughter, Francoise Bettencourt Myers. She had a tense relationship with her mother before her death, even suing her in 2008. Since she inherited the title of the world's richest woman, with an estimated wealth of $94 billion, she's become known for her philanthropy, giving $250 million to rebuild the Notre Dame Cathedral. But not all billionaires are worth celebrating. How rich is Dawood Ibrahim? No one knows, but the notorious Indian criminal is believed to be a billionaire. Wanted around the world for drug trafficking, murder, terrorism, and other crimes, he's believed to be the mastermind behind a series of explosions in Mumbai in 1993. He might have started out as a small-time criminal in the 1970s, but he is now believed to have one of the biggest cash stockpiles for a criminal since the notorious Pablo Escobar. But if you're looking to ask him for the secrets to his success, good luck. No one knows where to find him. We still haven't looked at the true richest men in the world. When thinking about the richest men in the world, the likes of Bezos, Musk, and Gates come to mind, right? But are they really the richest men in the world? Although one of the 3 is often named as the richest man in the world, there is one man who overtook them all, and we are sure that you've never heard of him. That would be Bernard Arnault, the French businessman and investor who serves as chairman of the parent company of Louis Vuitton. The luxury goods company is a powerhouse, but you don't get to challenge tech titans on fashion brands alone. Arnault is known for his savvy investments and love of collecting fine art, and has slowly built his fortune into a staggering $188 billion, enough to put him at number 3 on the charts right now, and even briefly holding the number 1 slot. Who's next? The odds are you might not have heard their name yet. Congratulations, we hear that you have become a billionaire. No, we don't care how you made your money. You were smart to get out of Bitcoin when you did. But we here at the Infographics Institute have some suggestions on how you should spend your loot. Of course, no billionaire's life is complete without owning a mega yacht. Don't worry if you can't swim or don't like sailing. Traveling on a super yacht is just like being in a luxurious mini mansion. The mansion just happens to be on the water. Forget about not knowing anything about decorating either. You don't have to have good taste. You're rich. Now, there's actually no official definition for super yacht. Many yacht enthusiasts would disagree, saying that a super yacht or a mega yacht is a yacht of at least 79 feet or more in length. If the boat is really long, let's say over 328 feet, you could even call it a giga yacht. Others argue that rather than size, a super yacht is determined by the level of luxurious comfort, the rich furnishings, and the high level of services the yacht crew provides to guests who are lucky enough to be on board. As it turns out, all the boats in this video meet both definitions. Let's take a look at some amazing super yachts that may help you decide what you'd like to purchase. First up is The World Is Not Enough. Apparently, the owners love a certain franchise of spy movies. The World Is Not Enough is among the top 5 fastest yachts in the world. This sleek 139-foot-long vessel was designed to be extremely aerodynamic, and it has a V-shaped hull to slice through the water. 4 powerful engines give The World Is Not Enough a top speed of an impressive 70 knots and a cruising speed of 45 knots. Yet the boat was also designed to minimize engine vibration and noise levels. You'll notice that this is a common feature among super yachts. Billionaires don't like noise to disturb their vacations. If they're inside, they want to forget that they're on a boat. As for the interior, 10 lucky guests can stay in 5 luxurious cabins supported by an 8-person crew. The yacht has a fancy saloon with an atrium, 2 bars, one on the main deck and another on the sky deck. The decks are made from rare teak wood, and there are polished marble columns in the palatial master suite. Skylights and designer furniture abound throughout the ship. If you're thinking The World Is Not Enough is a little on the small side, you may want to consider a boat like the Amaze, which at 590 feet in length is the largest private motor yacht in the world. We've done the math, and for reference, it's about as long as 1.75 professional soccer pitches. Sorry, Americans, you don't know how long that is. Though not a particularly fast vessel, the Amaze tops out at 32 knots. The fact that this giga yacht has its own mini-submarine and missile defense system makes up for it. It also has multiple helipads, 2 swimming pools, a cinema, and a disco. The grand salon on the main deck is 95 feet long by 60 feet wide, with no pillars dividing the space. The Amaze boasts amazing views from its many windows, which are made from bulletproof glass. Furthermore, the master suite is lined with armor plating and is also bulletproof. The Amaze provides space for 36 guests and 18 spacious cabins, supported by a crew of 60 in 30 cabins. If you're wondering why the need for such security, the Amaze is owned by the President of the United Arab Emirates. Sadly, we have no idea what the interior of the Amaze looks like. Security has never allowed pictures to be taken inside. If sophistication and classic elegance is more your style, perhaps you'd be interested in purchasing a super yacht like Tis. The yacht is 364 feet long with 6 decks. The decor on the Tis is modeled after Versailles, with the furniture inspired by the antiques of Louis XIV to the XVIII. Decorating the polished wooden floors are plush, colorful Parisian salon-style rugs. A stunning double staircase leads up to the informal saloon on the owner's deck. 3 chandeliers grace the dining room. A helipad doubles as an outdoor dance floor or a cinema, but if the weather is terrible outdoors, then there's an indoor cinema too, with comfy reclining chairs. The Tis boasts a few other staircases. The central staircase allows you to make a statement entrance. It has marble steps, handrails, and gilded wrought iron, and winds up through a stunning atrium that soars 49 feet overhead. However, if you don't feel like taking the stairs, there's an adjacent stylish glass elevator with cushioned velvet seating in case you need to sit down. Each guest room on the Tis is themed, inspired by a particular city or region the owner has visited, such as New York or London. The boat also has a spa, a gym, tea room, beauty salon, and massage room. Then there's the Octopus, which we would describe as having a luxury, minimalist style. Measuring at 414 feet, the Octopus was the largest personal yacht in the world when it was built in 2004. It has a cruising speed of 17 knots and a top speed of 20 knots. The yacht is equipped with a movie theater, basketball court, and recording studio. The requisite pool is glass-bottom, so it seems like you're swimming into the depths. Also, poolside, there's a full bar. The Octopus has accommodations for 26 guests in opulent 41 suites. 60 full-time staff members share 28 cabins. On the main deck, there are 2 helipads, a twin pad, and multiple hangars in the stern. The Octopus also holds 7 tenders aboard, including a 63-foot tender in the transom, plus a landing craft. Last but not least, the Octopus has 2 submarines. One is called Pagoo, and it can dive for up to 8 hours and accommodate 10 people. The other is Octo ROV, which can be remotely controlled and dive up to 8,843 feet. Google Earth actually borrowed the ROV for their project Explore the Ocean. Can't decide what kind of super yacht you would like to buy? Why not get 2, like a Russian billionaire did? He has a yacht for sailing and also a slightly smaller motorized yacht. Sailing Yacht A has 8 decks. It's 468 foot long with 3 328-foot masts. That's taller than Big Ben. and it can travel at up to 21 knots, and its cruising speed is 16 knots. In addition to several helipads, a submarine, several luxury tender boats, and elevators to help guests move around the Giga Yacht, Sailing Yacht A features 3 separate spa pools with current-generating technology and a glass underwater observation area located in the keel. We're pretty sure Sailing Yacht A has some fancy furnishings, but unfortunately, we don't know for sure. The intensely private owner hasn't allowed the media on the boat. However, from a distance, a photographer managed to snap a picture of a chair in the shape of a giant head near what appeared to be a bar and a dining area. The owner's second boat, Motor Yacht A, is a little smaller at 394 feet and was designed to look like a surfacing submarine. Powered by 2 diesel engines, the yacht has a top speed of 23 knots and a cruising speed of 19.5 knots. Motor Yacht A's decor is dominated by mirrors, baccarat crystal, and unique animal skin wall coverings, such as a bedroom covered in white stingray hide. The master suite has serious security. It's opened via fingerprint. Many of the electronics on board, such as the 60-inch TV in the master bedroom, hang from the ceiling and retract via remote control when not in use. The boat has 3 pools, a giant helipad, and a disco. The cavernous garage, which houses 3 tenders, can also be used as a party space. All over the yacht are patches of grass for the owner's dog. Frankly, we could go on and on describing various yachts, but really, they're all kind of the same. Shout out to whomever just slammed their jewel-encrusted gold-plated laptop in shock. While researching the story, we nosy, underpaid, and judgy writers at the Infographics Institute were curious to find out exactly what cool or interesting things billionaires filled their boats with. But we realized that everyone puts similar type of stuff into their similar type of yachts. Designer furniture, chandeliers, baby grand pianos, top-line electronics with hand-painted murals or high-end artwork on their walls. Decks are made from rare wood. There's gold or platinum-plated trim. Stairs and counters are made from exotic marble. Clearly, the owners aren't shopping at IKEA. While amenities vary from yacht to yacht, the types of amenities are the same too. Pools, sometimes multiple pools, gotta have both saltwater and infinity, jacuzzis, spas, elevators, huge grand salons, movie theaters, gaming rooms complete with ping pong and pool tables, discos, basically anything you might find at a 5-star hotel. That includes an impeccably trained crew, whose job it is to fulfill any whim you might have, day or night. Yawn. I'm not saying that any of the infographics staff would turn down a chance to stay aboard a super yacht, of course we wouldn't, but a big discussion ensued as to what we would put on our own super yachts if we were rich enough to own one. Obviously, whatever you get is for the purpose of impressing other billionaires. It totally is. Hear us out. Ultimately, owning a super yacht is for impressing other people who also own super yachts or are capable of owning super yachts. Sure, it's fun to vacation on one, but really, super yachts are for sailing to the French Riviera or off the coast of Italy and holding fancy parties while being moored in the harbor. You invite your wealthy and A-list friends over to impress them. Perhaps you mount some of your family's expensive art collection aboard so your friends can admire your Picasso or Degas over cocktails. Or you hire a pop star to entertain your guests, such as Lenny Kravitz performing at the Motor Yacht A's owner's 3rd wedding anniversary bash in 2008. You impress your wealthy friends with your super yacht. Then they become inspired to go purchase super yachts of their own so they can outdo you and each other. The circle of life continues. After much debate, we narrowed down the list of things infographic writers would have on their super yachts to a top 5. Aside from the usual fancy stuff, we think if you're buying a super yacht, you should have number 5, a go-kart racing track that loops the length of the ship. Number 4, a zoo, basically creating Noah's Ark. Number 3, a huge aquarium with sharks and lasers attached to their freaking heads. Number 2, indoor ski slope. And number 1, a treasure room for swimming through gold coins, like a certain wealthy duck. As you can imagine, kidnapping a member of a billionaire family would be a difficult task. But one Hong Kong gangster named Chung Si-kyung didn't just kidnap one, but multiple billionaires. And the amount of money he made during his time as a crime boss was absolutely insane. It was May 23, 1996, when Victor Lee Sar-kyoy was driving to his father's house. Suddenly, another car swerved in front of him, both vehicles coming to a screeching halt. Armed men swarmed Victor Lee's car and pulled him out to the concrete. He was dragged to the other vehicle, thrown in and tied up. The kidnappers sped away to bring Victor Lee to their boss, Chung Si-kyung, so he could be ransomed for millions of dollars. Victor himself wasn't especially wealthy, but his father, Li Ka-shing, was one of the wealthiest men in China. He had made a fortune of billions from the shipping company he owned. Chung knew that by kidnapping the billionaire's son rather than the man himself, he could hold Victor Lee for ransom and receive the money in a matter of days. How did Chung Si-kyung do it? And how much is a billionaire's son worth? To understand this mastermind, we'll have to dive deeper into the seedy underworld of Hong Kong and how it created this kidnapper of billionaires. Chung Zi-kyung was incredibly successful at pulling off big payout crimes. However, he wasn't your normal crime boss. His nickname was Big Spender, and his obsession with money was borderline unhealthy. The gangsters who worked for Chung, along with others who met him, were shocked by his generosity and spending habits. Reportedly, even the triads were impressed with the way Chung Zi-kyung spent his money. He would drop massive amounts of cash on gambling tables in the casinos of Macau. Chung clearly had gambling problems, as he once lost $20 million on a single game. He loved money so much that in his bedroom there was a giant carving of an M hanging on the wall over his bed. When asked what it stood for, Chung just smiled and said, "Money." Chung was introduced to a life of crime at an early age. His father operated an illegal gambling ring and often sent his son to do jobs for the organization. This included dealing with the money. By the time Chung was 16, he had already been arrested and convicted for his activity in the street gangs of Hong Kong. After being released, it didn't take long for Chung to make a name for himself and become the boss of his own gang. Chung enjoyed the finer things in life, like fast cars, gourmet cuisine, and expensive liquor. He also had a taste for art. It was said that he once paid tens of thousands of dollars for an art piece created by a street painter in Bangkok. Chung stayed in luxury hotels and made sure to tip the staff extremely well. In fact, just before his final arrest, Chung put himself and his gang members up at an extraordinarily expensive hotel to relax from crime for a bit. The hotel didn't mind having a crime boss there, as he paid his bill in full and continuously provided the hotel staff with generous tips. But how did Chung amass his fortune? Was he just your ordinary crime boss? Chung Zi-kyung was a mastermind when it came to kidnapping billionaire targets. His crime spree is like nothing you've heard of before. Early on in his career as a crime boss, Chung partnered with another high-profile gangster named Yip Kai-foon. Together, they carried out a number of armed robberies that made Chung a wealthy man. One of the first robberies was at Kai Tak Airport. They managed to infiltrate the consignment warehouse, where Chung and Yip stole almost $4 million worth of Rolex watches. The craziest part is that Chung wasn't done making money off the airport yet. A year later, he went back to Kai Tak a second time and robbed a security van, which contained close to $20.5 million worth of loot. Unfortunately for Chung and Yip, it looked like they were going to be caught. But for Chung, something unbelievable happened. Even though at this point, Chung had stolen around $25 million at the airport, he did not spend very much time in jail. When he was arrested for the security van heist and sent to trial, the judge found that there was not enough evidence to convict Chung. His sentence was supposed to be for 18 years, but the case was said to have too many inconsistencies when presented to the judge. Yip Kai-foon, on the other hand, was found guilty and sentenced to 41 years in prison. Was the judge paid off by Big Spender? Or was there really not enough evidence to convict Chung Zi-kyung? We may never know, but his deep pockets probably had something to do with it. Chung's life of crime was filled with lucrative robberies. He eventually stole enough money to hire his own army of thugs to protect him. They helped him carry out more crimes and amass enough weapons to start his own war if he wanted. On the darker side of things, anyone who was thought to be an informant was immediately and brutally assassinated. Chung had no desire to risk his chances in the courtroom again. Living the big spender life wasn't cheap, and Chung continuously needed money flowing in to support his gambling and spending habits. That was, unless he could claim a big payday, Chung needed a crime that would bring in enough money that he would be set for the foreseeable future. That was when he decided it was time to start kidnapping billionaire targets. After kidnapping Victor Li, Chung gave his billionaire father 3 days to deliver the ransom. Li Ka-shing had no choice if he wanted his son returned alive. Chung actually held the billionaire son in his own house while he waited for the money to be delivered. In the end, Chung received over $1 billion Hong Kong dollars in ransom money for the return of Victor Li. This is just over $135 million in US, making it the largest kidnapping ransom ever paid at the time. Chung Zi-kyung was now filthy rich, but it still wasn't enough. He thought of himself as a true mastermind. Chung was even reported saying, "I take unconventional steps to get rich. Money is the most important thing in life, but it's only me who can pull off kidnapping tycoons." And he was right. After the successful payday made off of Victor Li, Chung devised another kidnapping to make even more money. On September 29, 1997, Chung Zi-kyung and his gang kidnapped Walter Kwok, a billionaire chairman of Sun Hung Kai Properties. Sun Hung Kai Properties was one of Hong Kong's largest property conglomerates, and this had allowed Kwok to amass a fortune. Chung wanted in on the action, so he kidnapped the tycoon and ransomed him off to his wife. Kwok had not cooperated on his own, so Chung had him roughed up a bit to make him more receptive, In the end, Kwok's wife was able to collect 600 million Hong Kong dollars, or roughly 77 million US dollars, to secure the release of her husband. At this point, Big Spender was getting a little greedy. He did not necessarily need the money, but he wanted more. He was truly addicted to the stuff. However, his next attempted kidnapping didn't go as planned and would eventually lead to his downfall. The crazy thing is that this kidnapping was more personal than business. Chung had planned the kidnapping of Chief Secretary for Administration Anson Chan, who was responsible for putting Chung's friend and accomplice Yip Kai-foon in jail. This was a kidnapping of retribution. Unfortunately for Chung, someone tipped off the authorities before the job could be completed. In preparation for his retaliation, Chung had bought 818 kilograms of explosives and placed them around the Shengshui neighborhood of Hong Kong. It seemed that his plan was to bomb several government buildings. When the raids began on his storehouses and hideouts, Chung fled Hong Kong for the Guangdong province of China to lay low for a while. He bribed the police using the massive amount of money he had stolen over the years. Even while in hiding, Chung had been planning his next kidnapping. His idea was to kidnap the Macau gambling magnate Stanley Ho. Big Spender was no stranger to the casinos of Macau, and he knew there were enormous sums of money controlled by the heads of the casinos there. Ho probably wasn't just a billionaire chosen at random, as Chung was known to have lost more than $200 million at Ho's casinos. The plan to kidnap Ho might have also been an act of retribution, but not one that was ever carried out. Chung continued living his life of luxury for a few months in China before the authorities finally caught up to him. Chung and 35 of his men were arrested at their Guangdong province hideout in August of 1998. They were tried in China, where they had been captured, and this was particularly bad news for Chung because of what would happen next. Chung's lawyers lobbied the Chinese government to move the trial back to Hong Kong, where most of his crimes had taken place. This was probably done because the court system in Hong Kong tended to be slightly more lenient than the one in Guangzhou province. The request was denied by the Chinese government, and Chung was sent to trial in the Guangzhou courts. Charges against Chung included illegal possession of weapons, transporting and smuggling explosives and firearms, robbery, and kidnapping. Chung had planned to plead not guilty, but on the very first day of trial, he made a full confession. When he confessed in court, Chung showed no fear or emotion at all. He put on a persona of being afraid of no one. It was allegedly reported that the police had used questionable tactics to elicit the confession from Chung, but he wasn't going to give them the satisfaction in the courtroom by showing any emotions that would convey fear. On November 12, 1998, Chung was convicted and sentenced. The penalty for his crimes in China was death. While in jail, it was reported that he still tried to maintain his big spender lifestyle by ordering bird's nest soup and other delicacies. On December 5th, the sentencing was carried out, and Chung Se-kyung was finally executed by firing squad. It is unknown what the outcome of a trial would have been in Hong Kong if Chung had been tried there, but it wouldn't have been worse than death by firing squad. Chung was obsessed with money, and his means of getting it through kidnapping of billionaires was something unique. He bought luxurious things and tipped well until the very end, even though the money wasn't really his to spend.
Paying off student debt, carving out a career, and working out strange new business and personal relationships. That's pretty much how most 20 and 30-somethings balance their time. But some of us, it appears, are more than a little driven by the big bucks at a much earlier age. In 1987, Bill Gates, at 31 years of age, became a self-made billionaire. Just over 20 years later, in 2008, Mark Zuckerberg took the title for youngest self-made billionaire when he reached that status at just 23 years old. Our billionaires seem to be getting younger and younger. But who else has reached billionaire status as a youngin? That's what we'll find out in this episode of the Infographic Show, Who Became Billionaires the Youngest? Perhaps the youngest billionaire in the world right now is a 23-year-old Norwegian heiress. Alexandra Andersen, an investment banker and heir to a family tobacco fortune, is a typical young billionaire. Because her dad's company is now worth a mint, she and her 22-year-old sister are currently the youngest billionaires rocking the billionaire circuit. Alexandra enjoys horse riding, cause why not, is part of the national dressage team, and is said to own at least 6 of the horses. The net wealth of the horses is currently unknown. But not all young billionaires inherited their fortunes. The aforementioned Mark Zuckerberg was just 23 years old when Facebook exploded from his college dormitory and into the world's biggest social network website. Even after taking a hit after flotation, Zuckerberg is still worth something around the staggering $72 billion mark, not bad for a lad who has yet to hit 35 years of age. The slightly older co-founder of Napster, Sean Parker, was an early mentor to Mark Zuckerberg and an early investor in Spotify and other startup companies. He's currently amassed more than $2 billion to his name and reached billionaire status in 2005 at the ripe old age of 26. Parker proves that having a finger in many tech pies is the best way forward to amass a fortune in your early years. Since 2005, Parker has been an active donor to cancer research and has pledged a $5 million grant to create an immunotherapy dream team to help control and prevent the disease. Snapchat co-founder Evan Spiegel became a billionaire in 2015 at the age of 25, making him one of the youngest self-made billionaires. He's now worth just double that at $2.1 billion. Snapchat is a photo messaging service that exchanges temporary photos between friends and was valued at $10 billion in 2014. Representing China, Wang Yu became a billionaire at the age of 29 through development of online and mobile gaming. Wang, formerly of 51.com, has built King.net into a leading online and mobile game service and also runs a popular mobile phone application. Meanwhile, Larry Page earned his first billion in 2004 at the age of 30, making Google's co-founder one of the youngest to first hit the billion-dollar sweet spot. Today, Larry is estimated to be worth around $35 billion, according to, you guessed it, Google. Lucas Walton, son of Walmart founder Sam, inherited a sizable sum of the estate following his father's death, making John, at age 31, a young billionaire who got his money the old-fashioned way, through inheritance. The fortune was thought to have been left to his mom, Christy Walton, but recent news indicates Lucas was the main beneficiary of the Walmart billions. Lucky him. 2015's richest man, the above-mentioned Bill Gates, had his first billion netted by the age of 31, which makes him one of the groundbreaking pioneers of the get-rich tech-savvy brigade. Today, Gates is worth around $91.2 billion and is still going strong. But things weren't always so rosy. The Microsoft founder was said to have memorized employees' license plate numbers to monitor their comings and goings to and from the office in his earlier years as Microsoft boss, but has admitted when the company became a certain size, he had to loosen up a little. Representing the energy sector, Scott Duncan, age 34, is worth over $5.5 billion after he began the pipeline company Enterprise Pipelines with inherited money. While the energy sector has been taken over by the tech industry in terms of young billionaires, let us not forget that there is still plenty of old money in oil and gas. Duncan is a young gun in an old man's game. Amazon's co-founder Jeff Bezos raked in his first million at age 35 in the year 1999. The CEO's shares in the global mail order service brought him from millionaire to billionaire as worldwide sales flourished. He's now worth an estimated $125 billion, and business is flourishing with the advent of Amazon Kindle, Amazon TV, and their new publishing and content services. Nathan Blekarczyk is a 34-year-old billionaire worth almost 4 big ones. He co-founded and has a 13% stake in Airbnb, the international company that is taking on traditional hotel chains and the hospitality industry around the world, showing us yet again that the tech world is infiltrating all business sectors with increasing and escalating success stories for the well-heeled young. And back to tech companies, Mark Cuban sold his first company, Micro Solutions, to make him a millionaire, and then sold his second, Broadcast.com, at the age of 40 years old, making him his first billion in 1998. Last of all, and perhaps the granddaddy of the modern-day billionaire boys club, is Sir Richard Branson, who didn't earn his first $1 billion until he'd reached the comparatively wise old age of 41. Thanks to the success of his many companies, the Virgin Group CEO is now worth approximately $5 billion, and Sir Richard, along with Bill Gates and new boy on the block Mark Zuckerberg, have paved the way for many billionaires to follow in their trail-blazed paths.
Sunburned and starving, sand in every orifice, stranded on a beach in a far-flung country where he can't even speak the language, is 2 steps away from utter defeat. Then he receives it, the gift. This homeless high school dropout is going to become a billionaire. Born to a Colombian mother and a Swedish father, the young Andres Pira understood what it felt like to live in 2 worlds. The family moved from Colombia to Stockholm when he was just a young boy. Then, when he was 7, his parents got divorced. He said after that, the world felt cruel to him. He had no footing. He was a long, long way from finding what he would later call his secret. Youth like me didn't have a future, he said. He stopped caring in his teens, dropping out of school when he was 14 with pretty much nothing to show from his time there. His parents, he thought in those dark days, would never be proud of their son. One of the last things the school ever said to them was, "Your child has stunk out the classrooms after hiding rotten fish in the air vents." He was that kind of kid, and one that took to drinking, as the saying goes, like a fish. Andres was like many other kids lost in the world, perhaps similar to some of you younger folks watching the show right now. With no sense of direction, he decided being destructive was the best way to go. One day when he was 18, this culminated with him waking up after a booze binge at the side of an abandoned building. His body was cut and bruised. Broken glass lay all around him.
He had no idea what had happened, later saying he felt as though he was dead inside. He was a tough kid, a fighter, but when his mother saw the state he was in, he said her look of disappointment hurt much more than any smack to the face ever did. Little did he know he was about to throw gasoline on the already raging fire. In the early 2000s, he managed to find work selling SIM cards at a telemarketing company, but then he got fired for not showing up one day. The shame just piled up, as did the bills, as did the amount of drinking he was doing. Without money, without a job, without an education, he felt absolutely hopeless. In his mind, and his parents' minds for that matter, he was destined for the trash heap of life. In dreams, he saw himself swimming closer and closer toward a giant plug hole. He saw poverty, addiction, violence, prison, and an early death. Then something happened that changed everything. His grandfather passed away. Andres was stricken with grief. Many a time this guy had taken Andres to the side and tried to give him some words of wisdom. He never really listened, but now, with a $2,000 inheritance, he thought he had to do something with his life out of respect for the old man. The first thing was to escape. He knew he had to get to a different track. So he did what many young folks have done and bought a plane ticket to a distant country. Perhaps, he thought, if he could just get away from all the things that kept bringing him down, he might discover he isn't such a failure after all. He bought a one-way ticket to Thailand, destination Phuket, that sweet little spot in the world which people visit and never want to return from. The number of foreigners who felt this way must be in the millions, but Thailand has been the wreck of many a young man. Paradise can soon turn into hell in a country without any kind of safety net. But Andres, then 20, told his mom he wasn't coming back. She just looked at him and said, "Follow your heart, kid. Do whatever you think is right." He was determined to make something of himself in Thailand. But with barely over $100 in his pocket, he didn't have much time to find a way to make money. Just buying the bus ticket from Bangkok to the beaches was almost enough to bankrupt him. In Phuket, after traipsing on the streets and asking anyone he met where he could find work, he got a job handing out flyers for a hotel. Not only was working without a permit illegal, but the job only paid about $100 a month. That was far less than the lowest paid locals or migrant laborers got. It was barely enough to pay for a rotten room and buy himself a noodle soup every day just to have the energy to walk around. But when he could, he took advantage of well-off vacationers who were only too happy to share in their bottle of the dreaded Sangsom Thai rum. This stuff has been the downfall of many a man, and it was partly the reason why Andres ended up not being able to pay his rent. He was thrown out of his hovel and had no place to go. The vacationers now not wanting any part of a man who couldn't even afford to have a decent wash. He was lost in paradise, down and out. But how could he tell his parents what had happened? He couldn't do that to them. He slept on the beach at night and woke up before sunrise so no one would know he was homeless. Had the Thai cops ever found him, he would have likely been sent to one of Thailand's notorious immigration jails. Hell on earth for most people that have been unlucky enough to stay in one. There wasn't much time. He had to somehow find a way out. This future mega millionaire wrote to a friend in Sweden asking for cash. That friend, knowing the destruction Andres had already caused, sent the letter back with a total of 0 cents in it. But it came with some words of advice. Those were, "I won't give you any money, but I'll give you a book that might help." That book was called The Secret, written by Rhonda Byrne. Andres just looked at it with a sense of disdain for his friend, thinking, how is this going to help me eat? Still, with absolutely nothing to do, he read it. He later called it the best gift I've ever received in my entire life. He read things like, there's no such thing as a hopeless situation. Every single circumstance of your life can change. He read about the law of attraction. It told him to not think for a minute you're just a product of the past. You can change. You can become what you want to be with the power of positive thinking. Gradually, people will feel this positivity emanating from you, and they'll want to be close to you, perhaps even reward you. He sat on the sand, his stomach churning with hunger pangs, and read, when you want to attract something in your life, make sure your actions don't contradict your desires. Think about what you've asked for, and make sure that your actions are mirroring what you expect to receive. Part of him thought he wasn't going to fall for some self-help garbage written by someone exploiting people's fears and making a ton of cash from it. But then again, he was homeless in a country where he couldn't even speak the language. The law of attraction is not scientific, although its proponents will tell you that it works. Andres will tell you that it works. It's because something happened on the beach that day, something that changed inside of him. He said to himself, the only difference between rich and poor is the mindset. After that, he admitted to himself that he had for a long time hated the world. That had to stop. The American writer Malcolm Gladwell might not totally agree with wealth being gained only from mindset. He'd say you also need a bit of luck, too, as well as a lot of drive. Andres had some luck when he went to a real estate developer in Phuket and asked for a job. He got it because he later said he'd visualized getting it. Strange as it sounds, just a few days before that, he sat on the beach visualizing a cup of coffee. He thought it was a stupid thing to do, but what the hell? He later said in an interview some guy came up to him on the beach and handed him a cup of coffee saying, Thought you could use a coffee because you look tired. His second visualization was him having a nice lunch rather than his usual dose of noodle soup. Now he started thinking about a tasty schnitzel. He said he could imagine how succulent it was. He saw the color of it, he smelled it. He later said, "It's very important when you visualize stuff that you have a clear picture of it. The more senses you put into the picture, the quicker it manifests." A couple days later, he was walking on the beach in the morning when an old friend bumped into him and invited him for lunch. Andres got his schnitzel. He then started thinking this cannot just be a coincidence. So now he thought about coffee and food had come. He thought about getting a job, and the job came. He thought, I wouldn't mind being rich. He then meditated on becoming successful. Handing out brochures didn't exactly make him rich, but it paid enough to rent a decent-looking place. In this new house, he posted pictures of all the things he wanted to happen to him in life. He saw a nice car, a bigger house, but not quite yet what was about to come into his life, including the emotional meeting with boxing legend Mike Tyson, a man who'd once visualized becoming the heavyweight champion of the world. We'll come back to that meeting. One day, Andres gave a businessman one of his brochures for a property. The guy told him that he'd like to see the property that day since he had a flight out of Thailand later in the afternoon. Andres told him to get on the back of his scooter and he'd take him there. No sales reps were around, and anyway, he believed he was able to do what they did. Once they were at the property, the guy said, "Okay, I'll take it." Andres couldn't believe what he was hearing. He just landed the sale of an expensive Phuket property. His boss was made up. After that, Andres landed a job as a sales rep, and that led him to becoming a sales director, which led him to leaving the company and starting his own real estate business. All the time, he was visualizing what he'd become. Then, when things were going well and he was living the high life in Phuket, he lost something important. He later said, "I stopped meditating, learning, and doing affirmations. I started worrying about losing everything I built, focusing on scarcity instead of abundance. This led to a bunch of bad decisions that ultimately forced him to sign for bankruptcy." But Andres picked himself back up again and started focusing on the positive. He grew a property empire in Phuket. He learned to speak Thai fluently. He never took anything for granted and each day felt grateful for what he had. With around 19 companies and over 250 employees, the homeless and angry beach bum turned into a man with a net worth of somewhere in the region of 2 billion Thai baht. That's not the same as a billionaire in US dollars, but it's still many tens of millions in US currency. Not bad for a guy that couldn't afford a roof over his head. He now tries to give a bit back, starting with a foundation in Phuket to help young folks on the island try and find work. Never has that been more important than of late, when Phuket turned into a ghost town due to the global pandemic. Andres also became a motivational speaker, often saying things like, "It doesn't matter how far down you go, there's always a way back." He once said, "I came to a country broke, without speaking the language. If I can change my fortune, anyone can." That was around the time he met Mike Tyson. On a podcast, Tyson joked with him, saying that homelessness on a beach in Phuket with hot chicks and relative safety compared to the US couldn't have been all that bad. On a serious note, Andres said, Mike became the champion so early because he could see already that he was the champion before it happened. Everything starts in the mind. Tyson then used some choice language when talking about millennials. They give up too easy, he said, with both of them saying people these days spend more time being envious of what they see online than trying to achieve things. Maybe that's the case, maybe it isn't. If a homeless man can become a billionaire in a foreign country without even knowing the language or culture, that itself shows you that you should never give up. In the words of Andres, first know what you want and then after that, fight for it even if it means picking yourself back up after a failure. The first step is right now, he likes to say. Write down what you want and the things you're grateful for. He does that every single morning. He says every person out there has something to be grateful for, never mind how bad things are. To that, Tyson said, "I'm grateful I'm not dead." That's a place we can all start from. Hey, it's hardly scientific, but some folks obviously believe in it. We repeat, this is not a science, lest you think thinking alone will make you rich. We think you might need to make a plan and focus on what you want, but you always need to work hard, have some skills, and as we said already, a bit of luck always helps.
No more cramming into the middle seat between a crying baby and a guy with the world's largest snore. Get ready to cross the ocean in style on a luxurious private jet. Here are some of the craziest secret features of private jumbo jets, including an inside look at the greatest private jet that never was. Private jets are a common luxury of mega millionaires and billionaires, and they offer a lot more than just legroom. The biggest are often more like private hotels in the sky, right down to the perfect place to relax. The residents of private jets can often retreat to luxurious lounges filled with comfortable couches where they can sit, recline, and even catch a nap. Even on smaller private jets, the spaces are divided into different rooms that offer that rarest of luxury on an airplane, complete privacy. And what about when you need a little more privacy?
It's the worst nightmare of any flyer on a coach flight. Your stomach starts rumbling and you've got to make a run to that cramped airline toilet where everyone knows what you're doing, and then you have to flush the bulky vacuum toilet. Well, on a private jet, you'll be greeted with a very different sight. A full-sized bathroom complete with a comfortable sit-down toilet and a sink with all the amenities. Many even have showers so you can get clean in privacy and comfort. And the best part of all, no line in sight. And after using the bathroom, it may be time for a meal. What's up with airplane food, right? In most cases, you'll be lucky to get half a can of soda and a pack of dry pretzels. On a longer flight, maybe you can order a sandwich. If you're lucky, it's not extra. But on a private jet, it's a world of difference. Many of the biggest private jets come with a fully equipped kitchen, turning out gourmet meals whenever their elite passenger wants something to eat. They're also likely to have a fridge containing all the passengers' personal favorite snacks. And some frequent travelers can even employ a full-time private chef for their plane. And eating all that food is a different world too. If you're lucky enough to get something to eat on a coach flight, you're just about to tuck into it, and then a guy in front of you reclines and it goes flying. Not on a private jet, where eating on a plane looks a lot like eating at home. If you have a luxury dining room in your home, it doesn't matter if you're thousands of feet in the air. There's nothing stopping you and your fellow flyers from dining out in what looks more like a Michelin star restaurant, except that you're the only guests that night. And after a long day and a filling meal, there's only one place you want to go. Sleeping on an airplane? Good luck with that in most circumstances. At most, you'll be able to recline and get some fitful sleep if there's no turbulence. But private jets have all the comforts of home, and that includes bedrooms. While flat beds are possible in first or business class on planes, they're usually not that roomy or comfortable. In a private jet, you'll be able to curl up in a king-sized bed that's just as fluffy and comfortable as the one you'll sleep in at a high-end hotel. You might even find that mint on your pillow if you've arranged it. And you'll need that rest, because it's not all pleasure on a private jet, it's business. The people who fly on private jets are often high-powered executives, diplomats, and politicians, and the world doesn't just go on hold because you're flying. Turning off the cell phone for the duration of the flight, like in commercial, isn't an option. So private jets are fully equipped with Wi-Fi and video systems, so teleconferencing is possible. And if you got several of your business partners on board, why not retreat to a fully equipped conference room to hash out things in person during the flight? And that's not the only use for technology on a private jet. No need to pick up that new James Patterson mystery or watch whatever movie's playing on the screen. You can have whatever entertainment you want on your private jet. That's because many of them come equipped with home theaters complete with surround sound and state-of-the-art visuals. They'll be equipped with internet access and DVD or Blu-ray capability, so you can stream whatever you want or bring entertainment from home. And if you're more into active entertainment, set up that video game system and school some noobs in Smash Brothers from 31,000 feet. Of course, one of the best parts of a private jet is that you can truly make it yours. The design of a private jet isn't an off-the-shelf kind of thing. The wealthy choose a basic model, but most of the work comes after that. Designing a private jet is similar to designing a custom mansion, and the lucky owner will usually build their vision from the ground up, picking their own interior and amenities. While neutral colors are the most common to create a professional atmosphere, there are no rules. Anyone can have their vision come to life if they have the money, whether that vision is a gold-plated bathroom or a room entirely plastered with pictures of their cat. And speaking of man and woman's best friend, it's the most nerve-wracking part of flying for every pet owner. While you're flying in relative comfort, Fido or Fluffy is sweating it out below in the cargo hold. Many people have advocated for planes to provide a safer place for pets, and private jet owners make that a reality. Pet areas are usually in the body of the plane and keep the dog, cat, or hamster contained in a climate-controlled area, so it's just a flying kennel for them. Of course, only one person determines what happens on a private jet, so there's nothing stopping a pet-loving billionaire from just letting their pet run loose, as long as it doesn't distract the pilot by being so cute. And if you want to stay fit while flying, that's possible too. This isn't a regular feature in private jets, but the most health-conscious flyers have sometimes even set up their own private gym inside their jets, especially if you're talking long cross-ocean flights. It can be helpful to have plenty of space to stay active. While doing acrobatics in the middle of turbulence might not be ideal, items like lightweight stationary bicycles can make it easy to burn some calories while waiting to land in your destination. And there's nothing stopping you from giving your personal trainer a spot on the flight if you need someone motivating you. And another big perk of flying in style? The staff. It's not hard to feel bad for the flight attendants on a crowded flight. They're serving a lot of people, some of whom are less than polite. But you could still do with some more attention, and on a private jet, you'll get it. You'll decide exactly who comes on board and what they do, and that means you can add whatever perk you want. Would you like hibachi at 31,000 feet in the air? Nothing's stopping you from bringing a Teppan chef on board. And if you want to follow that up with a relaxing rub-down, give that personal masseuse a ticket to ride. Nothing is foolproof, but if it goes wrong in the air, private jets are prepared. The Cirrus Vision jet, one of the smallest private jets, has one unique feature: a personal parachute built into the plane. If the engine's failing and it's not possible to return to the airport, the parachute shoots out from the nose of the plane. This destroys much of the plane, but it stabilizes the vehicle and glides it down to safety. And newer models also add in an autopilot that can land the plane automatically in case of a medical emergency, like if the pilot faints after eating too much of that catered dinner. But some billionaires have taken luxury in the air to the next level. It was the 2000s, and Prince Al-Walid bin Tal Assad had big plans. The Saudi prince loved luxury planes and already had two and a high-end yacht. But his next plane would be his biggest yet, a massive Airbus A380, customized to be one of the biggest and most impressive private planes in the world, and packing amenities that would put most private jets to shame. But alas, history had other plans, in the form of a devastating financial crisis that socked the prince in his bank account. The customized plane went unbought. But that doesn't mean we can't take a look inside at some of the most insane luxuries ever found in a private plane. For one thing, this towering plane isn't just a house in the air, it's a mansion. The customized plane has 3 floors, with 2 distinct ways to get around. First, you can climb from floor to floor in style with a stunning spiral staircase with golden handrails built around a shimmering chandelier, but if the prince isn't in the mood for walking, he can just press a button, and an elevator lift will bring him to his destination. It's not every plane where you need to plan transportation inside the vehicle. And for a hard-driving man like the prince, not any boardroom is acceptable. At first glance, the Airbus's boardroom looks pretty standard, an elongated table with room for 12 people. But this isn't just any glass table, it comes to life, serving as a giant touchscreen so the prince can send business memos to his partners and employees without anyone needing their own device. And another bonus is security. What's sent on the table touchscreen stays on the plane, and the prince doesn't have to worry about losing track of sensitive information. And after working hard, get ready to pray hard. The prince is a devout Muslim, and his plane was designed with that in mind. It's equipped with stunning prayer rooms decked out in white and gold. It provides an environment of peace and solitude perfect for reflection. But this sacred atmosphere holds a high-tech twist. Muslims are supposed to pray facing Mecca, and that can be tricky in the air. But not on this flight. The prayer mats are electronic and shift over the course of the flight, ensuring that wherever the plane is, the mats will be pointed in the direction of the holy Islamic city. And after some quiet prayer, it's time to party. The Airbus was equipped with a concert hall, perfect for enjoying live music tens of thousands of feet in the air. It's hard to think of a more elite atmosphere than a private concert from a top music star, and that's the kind of experience that's available when money is truly no object. It's not a surprise that the prince was known as the Warren Buffett of the Middle East. And who knows who would be headlining the concert hall if the stock market didn't crash. But sometimes you just want to relax. So what's more relaxing than a comfortable bedroom or a home theater on a private jet? How about a Turkish spa? These bathhouses full of fortifying treatments are popular in major cities in both Turkey and around the world. But it's rare to see one on a plane. Well, if the prince's purchase had gone through, he would have been able to enjoy the cleansing sweat of a sauna even while he was over the Atlantic. And he wouldn't have been the only passenger traveling in style. There's a large area under the Airbus not meant for any passenger, well, any human one. The prince ordered a large compartment under the plane for some very expensive cargo, his Rolls-Royce. These incredibly expensive cars need to be treated carefully, and the prince's accommodation for his precious vehicle was likely very different from a standard cargo hold. It seems like a lot for a private jet, but that may be a bit of a misnomer. Most private jets are designed to carry only a specific individual and their chosen passengers, but the prince's megaplane had a much bigger capacity. It could hold several hundred passengers, including staff, which makes it far bigger than any standard passenger plane. So, in a world without the financial crisis, the prince wasn't just traveling in style, he was hosting the biggest party the high skies had ever seen. For other elite planes, check out which is the best spy plane of all time, or check out what happens when you hide in the landing gear of a plane for the worst way to fly.